We have one information item today, and we will be hearing from Chancellor George from UM in St. Louis, giving us an update on economic development that's going on that campus.
If I stand right here, is that fine?
I'm not sure they can hear you screaming. And the radio people.
I want to see the screen. If I stand up there, I can see the screen.
Shoot.
You can sit here, Tom, if you want. Are we broadcasting this?
Are we broadcasting?
All right. Well, thank you very much for letting me have the opportunity to talk about economic development, University of Missouri, St. Louis. Actually, this was moved up to today. The president did this for me because I'm flying to China early tomorrow morning, and so I normally would have been doing this tomorrow morning. Let me just, we can go to the next slide. I want to just make a few comments about the university, which applies to all of our campuses, and that is when we talk about economic impact in this state and in the Midwest, we have to recognize that universities employ a lot of people. We've got a large annual payroll. I mean, you're talking about probably upwards of 80%, 75% of your budget goes into payroll. But we also then spend at the University of Missouri St. Louis, and you can see similar figures for other universities, $50 million annually on goods and services. And we have activities going on the campus that feed the economy. For an example, we just talked about capital with Nikki Krawitz and Bill. If you look at the sort of things that are going on the campus now, we have the Oak Hall completion that just, is our residence hall. We've got the South Campus garage that's getting completed. Renovations at nursing, baseball field we're building. We're demolishing a hospital. A variety of things that we're using for the most part local construction firms, local developers. We do go out with bid processes, but all this is feeding the economy. And I think we have to keep in mind that just simply by existing as a large entity, we are feeding the economy. If we can go to the next slide. Let me also comment about the university in general in St. Louis. It's amazing that when you think about it, this campus was founded back in 1963 from scratch. It was a golf course. And we now have over 56,000 graduates living and working in the St. Louis region. That in itself is certainly feeding the economy. We calculated that our alums in that region probably collectively earn about $3 billion a year. And you look at these facts and figures, of course, and I'm repeating common knowledge, but if you get a baccalaureate, master's degree, or doctoral degree, typically you're going to earn upwards of a lot more in a lifetime. For example, an individual can earn more than $1 million a year in their lifetime. Some of our prominent graduates are displayed here. Sandra Van Trees, who's the president of BJC, George Paz, who is the CEO of Express Scripts, Chris Wright, who is the superintendent of the Hazelwood schools, Herbert Huseman, who's the head of our Alumni Association, also runs Vantage Credit Unions in the region. But just examples of the kinds of people that we put into the workforce. Let me talk a little bit about our faculty research and expertise and how that enhances the economic vitality of the St. Louis region. So I'm just going to give some examples. The first few are going to be science related. We have a fellow here named Jim Bashkin. Now, Jim Bashkin is developing HPV virus therapeutics to help eliminate cervical cancer. And if this is successful, this would end up being the first non-surgical treatment option for women with this virus. And he's created a company. The company is called Nanavir, LLC. It's done in collaboration with people in Michigan. We've been working with the system office on this and, also our own people in the Office of Provost for Research to license and market this. And the university at the moment holds 3.75% equity in this. Let me comment also about his title, research professor. I think we're going to see more of this kind of a title at universities like University of Missouri St. Louis, and we see certainly a lot more of it at a place like Columbia. But we're looking for opportunities to increase our faculty size, recognizing that we don't have the state resources to do that. Jim's paying all of his salary off grants and contracts and other kinds of revenue sources, not from the state. And yet he's a very vibrant member of our university community. He works with graduate students. He helps in our teaching mission, and yet that's not coming from our state resources. Let's do another one. This is Chris Spelling. He is the chair of our Department of Chemistry. Also works very closely with some companies at our Center for Emerging Technologies, which I'll talk about shortly. He's designed chelators. Now, what a chelator is, it's a molecule with big claws, and it grabs things. And he's been doing chelators and methods to remove toxic aluminum from premature infant feeding solutions. He's working with collaborators at the University of Kentucky. They formed a company called Alchemos Incorporated, and they're negotiating a license of this initial technology from the University of Missouri and from the University of Kentucky. This is just something he does in addition to everything else. He just landed a major NIH grant and, of course, teaches and is chair of the Department of Chemistry. Let's do another one. Another example is Ji Zhu. That's how you pronounce that name. He's very recently designed a new infrared optical device that provides pain-free, non-invasive testing of blood analytes. And what he does is he does an initial target measurement of blood glucose, and this is critical in screening for different types of diabetes. He's in the early stages of trying to create a company, bring this product to market, and he's done this several times before, now with other products, and the system here actually 3 years ago honored him. He got the President's Award for Research. Let's do another one. Now, we're going to move away from science, and I think it's important to recognize that when we talk about economic development for the region, it's not all by scientists. It's not all in life sciences, but it's other areas. So, for example, here we have someone in criminology, criminal justice, and this should be a familiar face to most of our board members because we had him as a speaker, I think, 3 or 4 meetings ago for the Board of Curators when it was on our campus. And you probably have seen press that's come out in the last year about, St. Louis City has some of the highest crime rates in the country. And, a lot of it's the way you present data, the way you analyze data, and he's gone ahead and attacked that data. And he's been working closely with our RCGA, the Regional Chamber and Growth Association, and they've told us that the research he's done to combat these findings have helped in recruiting businesses to St. Louis because what you do is you get a negative black eye for reports that come out about higher crime rates in St. Louis. So, again, something that does help drive the economy. Public Policy Research Center. This is a center which reports to our provost, Glenn Cope, who's here in the audience. Mark Tranel is the director of this, and he's leading a business retention product with North County, Inc. This is not our chamber in North County, but it's a business development organization. Connected with this center, Kay Gason and Professor Terry Jones are leading various teams of faculty and students to help revitalize struggling city and county neighborhoods, again, all aimed towards economic development. Let me talk now a bit about what the university is doing to help to build the infrastructure to create, recruit, and sustain jobs in the St. Louis region. I've talked about this before. You've heard about it before, but it's worth talking about again because it's such a success, and that's the Center for Emerging Technologies. This is basically an incubator for life sciences companies. We've got a robust building in this. It's funded by the Missouri Department of Economic Development. The money comes to the University of Missouri, and actually the employees there at CET are UMSL employees. And we've had great success with this. And one signature success is Stereotaxis. Stereotaxis is a company that makes devices that are used doing heart surgery. And they've graduated from CET, Center for Emerging Technologies, and they moved to Cortex, which is about 300 or 400 yards down the road on Forest Parkway. This is another great success. The Cortex is an entity that the University of Missouri St. Louis University, Washington University, and Missouri Botanical Garden have partnered with, made some investment, and the idea is to have a place where you can have companies that have incubated and then move into an area like that, or someone that just simply wants to move into St. Louis. Soleil is a great example that's moving into an adjacent lot to Cortex. And because of CET, and then because of Cortex, we were able to keep Stereotaxis in the St. Louis region, and they had opportunities to move very many places in the country, but fortunately we're keeping them. But we've got a lot of robust companies now at CET. A number of our faculty, like Chris Spilling, are working with these companies, and our students get to work with these incubating companies. Express Scripts, of course, you've heard about before. In fact, I think the last Board of Curators meeting we had in St. Louis, we had a reception there. Another great example of economic development, it's the anchor tenant of our new Business Technology and Research Park. a building with 1,000 employees already there working. We're just finishing up a second building. It's about a 27-acre continuous plot, if you will. That's the beginning of our Business Technology Research Park. We've got about 60 acres that we own. It's not all contiguous. Our dream is to eventually have 100 contiguous acres, and kind of like if I were standing here 10 years from now, I'm sure I'd be talking about a 100-acre Business Technology Research Park. This is the largest company in the world, probably with its headquarters on a college campus, because we really researched this carefully when we were trying to do this. And they basically are what I'd call an IT kind of organization. Their annual sales last year were about $18 billion. They continue to grow. And I'll talk shortly about the IT thrust that we have in North County. If you look at the 10 fastest growing fields, and this is information which comes from the U.S. Department of Labor Statistics and also the Missouri Economic Resource Center, 5 of them are in information technology, whether it's data communication, software engineering. 4 of them are in life sciences. So, I mean, 9 out of the 10 fastest growing fields in this country are located either in IT or in life sciences. And if we're looking at the economy up through, let's say, 2014, what's projected here by these studies is that IT and life science jobs should grow by 36 and 39%, respectively. In fact, the actual number that's been quoted of job openings going up to 2014 in IT will probably exceed 28,000, and these are not low-paying jobs. These are high-paying jobs. And, of course, that's the kind of company we try to attract to our Business Technology Research Park. We've had opportunities for other entities to come to that park, but we want something that feeds the university, feeds the economy, and basically has higher-paying jobs, and the mean annual salary in the IT sector is $68,000. Let me just make a few comments then more about our information technology initiatives. With Express Scripts there, I think we can probably say that what we've got in the North County region of St. Louis is an IT thrust. We hear a lot about life sciences, and certainly with Washington University's medical school, St. Louis University's medical school, Cortex, CET, those are very major life sciences thrusts, and we're part of that. But if you look around the country and look at all successful biotech or life sciences thrusts in the country, there's always a major IT component to complement it. And that's what we're providing at the University of Missouri St. Louis. And let me mention one entity here, and this has been in partnership with the University of Missouri. The entity, if you want to slip to the next one, hey, well done. This entity is called IT Enterprises. It's actually an incubator, but when I took it to the Board of Curators for approval several meetings ago, I think Curator Erdman said, you may not call it an incubator, and so you will call it something else. And so we said, fine. So we're calling it IT Enterprises. And actually...
Yeah. I think we were going, maybe.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, and I think this will be successful. It's located at a kind of an industrial park, World Parkway Circle, halfway between the university and the airport. And I have to understand the university is right next to the airport, so we're talking about something about a mile away from the university. And it's located right next to the main car pickup and drop-off of Enterprise, actually, car rental. So maybe there's some way we can eventually partner with them. The idea of this building, and we bought a building. We bought a building, fortunately a laboratory building, 56,000 square feet. About 30,000 square feet are going to be for the IT project, if you will. We'll have in the center a high-performance computing center, which entities there will use, but also other entities like Monsanto has already expressed an interest in using this. We already are working on signing up our first tenant. Ironically, the first 2 tenants we actually got were just people renting the spaces from the parking lot. We got 250 parking lot spaces, so hey, we'll take revenue any way we can get it. And we try to help ourselves with this. I'd say the project to get this launched was about $5 million. We were able to raise about half of that by other means. Small Business Administration in Washington, we got about $1 million. Ameren UE, we raised about $500,000 from them, and also Missouri Technology Corporation, tucked away inside the Lewis and Clark Discovery Initiative. They had a $15 million initiative, and we were able to secure about $1 million of that. Actually, we're walking away with about $850K. We're giving $150K to Innovate St. Louis. But this is an example of something that we're trying to do at the university to help make this, if you will, a complement to the life sciences. And certainly in the future, this will be sustaining and be promoting the economy. It's a great location. It's right next to North Park, which is about 550 acres, which is developing. And I know Curator Walker knows well about North Park and the developers there. And I should add that she was just honored last night at MOCAN, down in the Renaissance Grand, for all the work that she's been doing in the region. So congratulations, Curator Walker. And with that, that ends my presentation.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments, since Chancellor George will be off to China in the morning and won't be able to join us tomorrow?
I do. A very refreshing presentation, Tom, and congratulations on really being at the cutting edge on this. I'm interested in the Center for Emerging Technologies. How was the capital pulled together for the building acquisition, the retrofit of the building? I see Chancellor Bailey back there. He'll know why I'm interested in this. But how did the consortium or the coalition you formed with the state of Missouri, Missouri Department of Economic Development, and the university address the capital needs for the building and the retrofit of the building?
Yeah, what was actually done is the building we went into was an existing building.
Right.
So we had to simply rehab on the building. Did some borrowing on that, and were able to.
Who did the borrowing?
Well, I'm not sure who did the borrowing. We didn't. Yeah, I'm not sure.
They raised the funds. The Center for Emerging Technologies raised the funds themselves, and working with Cortex to finance that building and get it fitted out. The university did not make any
So the
contribution.
university has no money in the
Not in CET. We do have money in Cortex.
Yeah, but I'm interested in CET.
And CET, not in CET, but what happens is we get about $400K a year from them through economic development. That gets translated largely into salaries. And then what they do is they have people that are paying rent in the facility, and so the people paying rent have been able to pay off the facility.
But to get the building acquired and retrofitted, that was done completely outside.
That was independent of the university, yeah.
It was Blanche Two Hills, baby, wasn't it?
Well, Blanche Tuhill, I gave her lots of credit. I mean, she's the one that engineered CET reporting through University of Missouri St. Louis. I know after it happened, WashU was very disappointed that it didn't end up going through Washington University. And
I think it's a great model, and I hope we're taking good notes.
And we're also now looking at a second building. And we've got an architect that's made designs on a second building at CET.
Is that right up next to it? Right.
It'll be right next in the same area, yes. Mm-hmm.
And I might add they're celebrating their 10-year anniversary next week.
That's right.
So it's certainly getting a lot of recognition surrounding their 10-year anniversary and the things that they've been able to accomplish in that time and making that vision an actual reality. And I certainly appreciate your report and helping to draw attention to just how vital the university plays an important part in the economic development of our community, of our state as a whole, and not simply as a result of the graduates that go into the workplace. That's an important place too, but there are certainly direct impact and direct benefits on a day-to-day basis that oftentimes aren't highlighted. So I really appreciate your presentation this afternoon. I don't know if President Forsey had anything he wanted to add.
Well, I would just say that, with the Chairperson Walker's focus on this year, I think it's going to allow us to, again, as a university system, to be sure that we are enabling, what you saw from Chancellor George on all 4 campuses. We have so much capability, and I think the question is, how do we be sure that we line up all the pieces that need to work together in order for it to happen? We've seen, certainly as I worked with Chancellor Bailey and Curator Erdman in Kansas City on a project, it takes a lot of energy to get all the pieces lined up. But I think we have to be sure we're supporting our researchers in their intellectual property to get patents filed. We have to be sure we support the researchers and those that want to then take the next step to get those commercialized, and then hopefully then have the wherewithal to help house some of that capability, and frankly then have some wherewithal to help take a piece of that capability in terms of seed capital, if you will. So there are a number of different components of that. Obviously each campus is at different stages of this development, but I think our opportunity this year is with a major focus and spotlight on all of the different pieces of this, because I think we have a huge opportunity, and frankly today part of that opportunity is yet to be tapped. We get a good portion of our capability comes from research grants, and our opportunity now is to turn some of that back around into revenue dollars at the university and margin dollars, frankly, the university can have to work with in this tough environment. So I'd like to thank Chancellor George for rearranging schedules to do this today.
I didn't rearrange. I was going to be here anyway. I'm just leaving early.
Exciting place to go to see the wet labs and everything that's going on down there. That they wouldn't have any opportunity, probably leave the state, wouldn't they?
Yes. I mean, it's just like Express Scripts. I mean, they had many opportunities to go elsewhere. You know, stereo taxes was a concern that we would lose them, but fortunately we kept them.
We'll have a chance in the morning to hear from a couple of the key players at the state level, Greg Steinhoff and Rob Monsees, and I think that presentation will help tie again a couple of other critical pieces of this discussion about economic development, the role the state plays, and how the university and the state can collaborate and need to collaborate together.
I make just one more quick comment, which is there's always challenges financially. One challenge we've got internally is how we reward faculty for getting engaged in this effort, and I don't think we've got that one resolved. You know, there's in the academy, there's a certain mindset of, you know, how you reward faculty with teaching, research, and service, and the research has a certain definition to it. And I think what we're seeing is an evolution now of this other component, that not everything is publishing in a journal. In fact, in some cases, you don't want to publish in the journal right away, or you won't be able to develop the product into an appropriate way. So these are some challenges that all the campuses are wrestling with across the country.
Thank you. Before I would entertain a motion to go into closed session, I'd like to share with the board that we're going to do our 2008 board photo immediately following the vote and prior to actually going into closed session. And I believe, Kathy, it is upstairs.
Third floor, other tower. So if you'll just follow me, we'll make a picture.
Okay, follow Kathy. With that, I entertain a motion for closed session.
I am suggesting
Second.
take out our name tags.
Take a with you, though. Not be able to get back.
Yes.
Leave our book here.
Yeah.
Curator Erdman?
Yes.
Curator Frazier?
Yes.
We're not coming back out
Haggard?
there. Likely.
We're
going someplace else. It's a closed session.
Curator Walker?
It is Ambien.
Leave everything.
Have a drink, come back and Ambien, and go to sleep for the trip. I'd like to call the meeting to order. And the first item of business is the board chair report. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Board of Curators meeting here in Columbia. Appreciate everyone who could join us today. And remind you again that we're broadcasting live via the internet, so please silence your cell phones and speak directly into your microphones. I'd also like to point out that, as you might have noticed, this is our first meeting where we've had our new security measures in place. And unfortunately, we live in a world that compels us to be vigilant about safety. And so we're requiring all attendees to wear badges identifying themselves, and we want to make sure that you are safe and that we are safe and that we do what we can in that regard. So as you know, guests now must sign in and be provided a visitor's pass. On a lighter note, for those of you who were able to join us last night, I'd really like to thank President Forsey and his wife Sherry for a wonderful, wonderful evening and such a celebrated, to celebrate the contributions of so many to our great university at the President's Awards Dinner. Each time I attend one of these dinners, I guess this would have been the sixth in my term here on the board, that I'm continually amazed and excited by what we have here. We certainly have treasures, and I'd like to again congratulate our winners and to thank President Forsey for a terrific time. Before I move into the formal parts of my remarks, I'd also like to make the board aware and those in the audience aware that the University of Missouri is very appreciated in the St. Louis community as well. And on Wednesday night before coming here, I attended the MOCAN dinner. And MOCAN is an organization made up whose mission is to increase the number of minority and women-owned businesses that participate in the construction process throughout the state. Well, the University of Missouri was a finalist in 2 categories, one for their commitment to diversity and to participation and inclusion in the state, and the winner, unfortunately for us, was BJC, but the announcer went out of his way to state how close it was and that we lost by 1 point. And so with that, I'd like to just recognize the university and Dr. Jacqueline Kelly for the efforts that she does with regard to those initiatives. The other finalist was for our project, Express Scripts. It was for a good public-private partnership project, and as well for the inclusion levels of women-owned businesses and minority-owned businesses on that project. So, again, just wanted to highlight that for purposes of something that many of you may not have been aware of. As you know, my theme for the year has been economic development through research, technology, and life sciences. And at each board meeting, I've tried to initially give an overview of the contributions that we're making in general, and then to be more specific in breaking down each of those components. And you will hear more, too, today, as you have for those of you who were able to attend breakfast, as to what contributions we make and the wonderful things that we have going on across the system. So today I'm going to focus on technology and it being the product or the outcome of the research that is done here, and the fact that new technology is what results in inventions and is what then is transformed into commercialization, and hopefully the end result being revenue to the university and beyond. Those of you who had the brochures at breakfast this morning, there are some handouts included in that to give you an indication of sort of where we were and where we are currently. And inventions contribute to our academic and public service missions, as you know, by increasing the pools of knowledge and making new technology available not just for our uses, but for the public at large. And for the exploitation of that, hopefully for an economic benefit and a substantive benefit for those who are the recipients of the technology that is born from it. The inventions discovered at the university have nearly doubled in the last decade, so that's the great news, with 65 reported inventions in 1997 and 123 reported in 2007. So we're certainly on the right track, and looking forward to increasing that at a more rapid pace in the next 5 years, I must say. To give some specific campus examples, I'd like to start here with the University of Missouri in Columbia. And the example that I'd like to share with you is of Professor Gabor Forsax and the George H. Vineyard Professor of Physics. And he's working to refine a process of printing tissue structures of complex shapes in the hope of building human organs. His team is using bio-ink particles and spheres containing 10,000 to 40,000 cells and assembles or prints them onto sheets of organic cell-friendly biopaper. And once they're printed, the spheres began to fuse into one structure of the biopaper, much the same way that drops of water fuse to form a larger drop of water. The university and Dr. Forsax are in negotiations with a startup company that is interested in licensing the technology for various pharmaceutical and therapeutic applications. And so, again, it's just an example. We heard in our breakfast this morning about we need to get more with developing companies and taking them to market, and certainly this is but one example on this campus. At Missouri S&T, researchers led by chemical engineering professor Dr. K.B. Lee are constructing new breeds of biodegradable and bioavailable plastics to reduce waste in the nation's landfills. By combining and modifying a variety of bio and oil-based and natural polymers, the team hopes to create optimal blends that can be used to make agricultural films, bottles, biomedical, and drug delivery devices more affordable. Similarly, or not, but an example on the Kansas City campus, within a few short years, if this comes to market as the plan is, livestock farmers could have at their disposal a valuable tool in helping control the spread of Jones disease, thanks to research being conducted on that campus. Jones disease is a distant cousin to the bacteria that causes tuberculosis in humans and is prevalent among beef and dairy cattle. Researchers at UMKC are working closely with the USDA and hope to have a prototype field diagnostic test soon to test for the disease so that infected livestock can be separated from the herd before they have a chance to transmit the disease. So as you can see, this can easily pave the way for future studies to look at potentials as it translates to human infection. The University of Missouri in St. Louis Center for Nanoscience is fusing leading-edge fundamental research with technology transfer and economic development by collaborating with small to medium-sized companies. An example of that is Crosslink. Crosslink is a St. Louis-based company which is working with UM in St. Louis to develop and manufacture customized conductive and electroactive polymers for commercial applications. The partnership is a win-win because the company is small, so it rarely possesses the entire spectrum of skills in order to bring their product to market. But the students at UM and SL receive hands-on experience in working with them and giving them the additional help that they need to bring this product into a competitive market. And I certainly would like to commend those researchers and others like them. There are countless examples on each campus and beyond for the technologies that they are developing to help to benefit our great state and beyond. I'd also like to point out from an example that I learned of last night for Missouri Extension in the West End Community Center in St. Louis. The West End Community Center is located in northwest St. Louis City. And the technology that the university is bringing there is really exposing students that otherwise would not have an early exposure to computer applications and computer programming and things of that nature. And I'm told that as a result of the exposure, it's increasing the number of students from that program who actually result to end up in college. And those sorts of things clearly have a positive impact on our economy because it increases their earning capacity. We discussed that a bit this morning, and then hopefully take some of those earnings and put them back in the economy. But even further, it also minimizes or reduces the number potentially of people who will be on subsidized programs and things of that nature because they will have the earning potentials of their own in order to compete in the society in which we live. The final thing that I would add in terms of my formal remarks at this point is that we have to continue to expand upon what we're doing, as we heard this morning in the presentation, and to celebrate the successes, to communicate what we're doing to beyond the four walls of this room. I think those of us here are here because we know and appreciate the wonderful stories that we have to celebrate, but we need to figure out a way to more effectively make that known to, I guess in the example that Greg Steinhoff used this morning, to the other 80% of the state that probably doesn't have a clue as to the significance that the university pays for our economy. Now, the final part of my presentation, one of my dear colleagues today is celebrating an 80th birthday on Sunday, and so I'd like to make a special presentation to Mary and Karen. Marion, this is to celebrate the anniversary of your birth, to celebrate all that you do for the university and the state of Missouri, and to celebrate the fact that I'm proud to say that a friend of my mother's has become a friend of mine. Thank you.
To admit that I'm that old.
Oh, you're beautiful. You're beautiful.
But thank you.
With that, I turn it over to President Dorsey.
Well, good morning, everybody. I will stay at my chair for the first part of this discussion, and I'm going to simply introduce the agenda topics that will be unfolding over the next few minutes. We'll continue as we started in April with asking each chancellor to give a brief, underlying brief report on a campus update, just to be sure that the curators and all of our associates this morning have a chance to hear the great things going on each campus. Dr. Gordon Lamb will give us an update on e-learning, distance education, a very important initiative, and I think really does tie in with the breakfast discussion about the opportunity for getting our message across the state, but also ensuring that we're doing a very efficient job of training and educating our citizens. Dr. Gary Allen will talk about information technology. I think it's important for the board to understand that what our mission is about in teaching and research, service, and economic development has to have an infrastructure that can enable that to occur. Sometimes information technology and systems and those investments aren't as appreciated in a typical budgeting process, and I think what you'll hear from Dr. Allen is that we have a good framework. It will continue to require investment for the future, but we're in very good shape related to that. And I will wrap up with a few comments about some of the activities that we have underway and that are upcoming. So with that, why don't we start with Chancellor Deaton. We'll move to Vice Chancellor Provost Cope, and then move back to this side of the table. So, Brady?
Great, thank you very much, and welcome to MU at a particular beautiful time of the year. You can enjoy the entire botanic garden that this campus represents, and it's a great time, and it was especially enjoyed by parents and friends who came to our 166th commencement this year, where we conferred almost 5,200 degrees. And we had great celebrations here on the campus, but also we did something for the first time with a virtual graduation exercise for those online degree programs. You'll be hearing more about this all from Dr. Lamb in a few minutes, but I wanted to call attention to the fact that 32% of our master's degree enrollments right now actually are online. And we had actually a virtual graduation ceremony as we see the tremendous growth that we've had in distance education of 16% per year for the last 5 years. We had graduation enrollment where we had our provost give inspirational messages along with one of our students who's busy doing other things right now, Carl Edwards from NASCAR fame, who gave an inspiring motivational message to the students, and is actually still continuing his education by distance, and we're looking forward to that. Also, we had Titus Blackman, who's president of the Mizzou Alumni Association, give inspirational remarks to the group as well. And I want to introduce the person that's been behind this growth in our program, Linda Butterfield Cupp. Linda, if you would just stand. I would emphasize that Linda has been named the Continuing Professional Educator of the Year by the Continuing Educational Association a few years ago, and very proud of your leadership, and thank you for making this kind of special event possible. As you're aware, in addition to the growth in our distance program, our growth in campus, as we discussed in one of the committee discussions yesterday, has reached all-time heights with something between 18 and 25% growth, depending on the melt that occurs this summer and new freshmen. But we expect at a very minimum 5,500 in our freshman class this fall, and that's up from just below 5,000 this past year. So it's been a challenging time, but we're addressing it. We're addressing new residence halls, as you're aware, here in the community, and doing a lot to provide that learning environment that has nurtured our students so well. Part of that nurturing extends to our athletic program and its great success academically, and I wanted to call attention to that. If you go on to the next slide, please. And this is really important, and I want to call attention to it, because you're looking here at an athletic program that is the #1 academic program among all the BCS universities in the nation. We're very proud of that. That clearly puts us at the top of the Big 12. It puts us in top of all the Big 10, the Big East, all the SEC, and other conferences around the country. It could not be a better time for not only competitive success for our athletic program, but also the tremendous athletic success. The APR, academic progress rate, began in 2004 by the NCAA to have a standard of measure across all institutions. So this is a wonderful time to celebrate that. And I've asked 2 or 3 people to be with us this morning to just illustrate some of that success. And I'll ask you to stand, and I'll say a word about each of you. In the audience, we have Chase Patton, quarterback from here in Columbia. majoring in biology, graduating in December, and going on to the dental school at UMKC. Along with him is Julie Avery, a gymnast who has completed her degree in journalism, is going on to the University of Oklahoma in sports management. Now, these are two outstanding student athletes who've achieved great success, and it's part of a program that is led by Brian Maggart, and we're pleased to have Brian with us this morning, the person who has coordinated across the athletic program with the main campus, and of course joining them also, I believe we have our athletic director, Mike Alden, with us. This is a powerful, not only competitive, but academic set of results for our athletic program, so you deserve a round of applause. It's just great to be number one in a number of things, and particularly academic success by student athletes in our athletic program is something we're very proud of as a university and have worked very hard to achieve. Another number one and person, and let me just first ask Dr. Jimmy Cook to stand. Jimmy, are you Dr. Cook? Behind me here. Let me say, ladies and gentlemen, you're looking not only at one of the top scientists in the world on our veterinary medicine faculty here, but also the nation's number one veterinarian, just named this past year. And with that distinction, Jimmy, I wanted to ask him to make a few comments on behalf of the scientific work here that he's doing.
Thank you very much, Chancellor. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and just highlight what we're doing in the comparative orthopedic laboratory here at the University of Missouri at Columbia. If we can have the next slide. I first just want to say, why are we here at MU? Why did we establish the comparative orthopedic laboratory here? And it's really because, truly, this is the only campus in the world, not only the nation, but in the world, that allows us to have within walking distance a very productive medical school, agricultural school, and veterinary school, along with excellent departments of engineering and biochemistry. And that's why we've established it here, because that allows us to do what our mission is. And if I could have the next slide. Our mission is really to do what I think a major focus is here today, and that is to bring things from the laboratory to actual clinical application and actual use to the benefit of people and animals. And so what's really neat about what we're able to do, we do comparative medicine. We look at species, and we do translational medicine where we bring something from the cell level to the clinical bedside or kennel side in some of the cases that occur. But what's important there, and especially if you think about the ethics of animal research, is that we bring it back to the animals. So something that may be tried first in a human actually then comes back to the animal in some situations, just in the way that that will work out. If I can have the next slide. Why is it critical? Well, everyone here knows, and in fact, Chris told me I need to get back to the lab just to get working on this because everybody in the room needs me to develop some better treatments for arthritis and better care for our joints. And it's a huge problem, and we know that that really makes the quality of life what it is to us, is that life is movement and movement is life. And the next slide. And so as a team, as that team that we're able to do here uniquely because of those relationships and working relationships and the support up to the level of the Chancellor and the President, we're 8-0. And this is just in bringing things literally from the laboratory to actual clinical application. And this is really unheard of, and it's really because of the team. So we build biological joints. We build tissues that will regenerate rather than repair your meniscus, your articular cartilage. We do anatomic joint reconstructions. And again, if you look at the last two of the three down there, some of those are in veterinary patients exclusively, and the University of Missouri is the only place in the world where you can get that procedure done in your pet or your racehorse. So we're just very proud of that. And then the last slide just highlights what I always need to do and say that it really is about the team, and that we've been able to build that here at the University of Missouri that I'm very proud of. And again, thanks for the opportunity.
Let me just conclude with two sentences. We're very proud of the research, the academic success, the programs here at the university, and getting the word out to the public about what this means for them is very vital. We've been trying to do that through some advertisement that you will see on your table. I believe each of you has in front of you an ad that features John Viator, who was talked about earlier in the program. They ran the St. Louis Commerce publication that our CGA provides in St. Louis to over 20,000 audience. You also have a golden-colored ad on our life sciences work. They ran in Nature magazine, one of the two most popular and prominent worldwide science magazines that goes over 600,000 readers, highlighting the critical plant science work that is done here at the university. with that, I thank you for this opportunity to share some of the University of Missouri with you.
Thank you, Chancellor. Provost?
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm representing Tom George, the Chancellor at University of Missouri St. Louis, and we'd like to just highlight a few achievements of our faculty and our students. And I probably need the microphone. I think we have slides. Okay. Okay. You can have the next slide, please. Those are photos of our commencement. One of our faculty members, Jim Widener, who was an artist in residence and coordinator of our jazz studies at UMSL, was the subject of a cover story in Jazz Magazine, which is basically the jazz, one of the biggest jazz magazines. The article talked about his career and the Greater St. Louis Jazz Festival, which just concluded in St. Louis with 4 days of performance with more than 750 students, educators, guest artists. It was a huge success, even though some of it got a little bit rained on. Next slide. Other faculty achievements, in this case, the doctoral program in our criminology and criminal justice area has been ranked 4th in the nation by U.S. News and World Report. They are doing phenomenal research in both preventing crime and looking at crime statistics, which has been of real interest to St. Louis. One of our young faculty members, she's been at St. Louis for 4 years, is physicist Sonia Bahar. She received the Innovation Award from the Academy of Sciences of St. Louis, one of several awards she's received this year. It's given to scientists and engineers under 40 who have demonstrated unique potential based on their initial contributions. And she's also really popular as a teacher. Next slide. Student achievements. You might be interested to know that the current UMSL student newspaper was the #1 choice, best in the state, of over 30 college and university newspapers of the Missouri College Media Association. It's the second straight year that the current has received top honors, so we're really proud of our newspaper. Next. A couple of other things about students. There's a student model European Union, and our senior, David Reynolds, he's a political science major, was labeled Best Environmental Minister by his peers at the Model European Union at Indiana University, Purdue University, IUPUI in Indianapolis. And our nursing students just continue to excel. Our senior nursing student, Kenya Haynes, was elected to the National Student Nurses Association Board of Directors. An alumna of our nursing school was named Student of the Year by the St. Louis chapter of Pediatric Nurse Practitioners. The picture, by the way, is of Kenya Haney. And a doctoral student, Susie Jones, was named Clinical Nurse Specialist of the Year by the National Association of Clinical Nurse Specialists. We can only fit one picture on the slide, but we're really proud of our student nurses and our alumni of the nursing college. Next. Summer activities at UMSL have gotten underway. This is the 4th year we have the College Summit Partnership. Rising high school seniors come to the campus for, in each case, is 4 days from underrepresented low-income high schools and communities in St. Louis. They get the opportunity to be on a college campus, to be instilled with the idea that they can actually go to college, which for some of them is something they haven't even considered. We've had people whose own parents have said, oh, you'll never make it in college. They come to College Summit, they learn how to write college applications, they learn how to think about college, and they are also counseled in appropriate places for them to go, whether it's the University of Missouri campus, a community college, or wherever it is that might be able to meet their needs so that they can actually succeed. Sort of the other end of the spectrum is the STARS program, students and teachers as research scientists. This program involves about 80 juniors and seniors from high schools who come and work with research scientists at UMSL, Washington University, St. Louis University, and several others in the St. Louis and Missouri area, and high school teachers as well, students and teachers. And they work together to learn how to be scientists. They have gone on in past years to many of the top science programs and universities in the country. Next. We also have a number of summer camps and summer workshops, including some music camps. The Big Band Jazz Camp, which Jim Widener, who we just mentioned, runs, Jazz Combo and Improv Camp, the Ariana String Quartet, and that's a picture of one of the faculty members in the Ariana String Quartet working with a student, and also Music Words Opera, a teacher's workshop to think about how to write and perform operas. Next, a little bit on enrollment. Our summer enrollment is up 4% this summer. We have over 5,000 students taking summer courses, which is a a new high, and our graduate enrollment is up 14% this summer. The other thing we're really happy about is that first-time freshmen are starting college early in many cases. We have a third more students, first-time freshmen, starting in the summer, taking summer courses. This is good for many of our students who need to get an early start so that they don't have to take so many courses each semester during their freshman year. Next. And our fall enrollment is up. Freshman enrollment is up about 7%. Total student enrollment is even right now. We don't have an enrollment deposit, so we just have to go on the actual enrollments, and we're waiting for people to continue to enroll, which they do all summer. African American freshman enrollment is up 19%, and graduate enrollment is up 2%. And that's our report. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Chancellor Carney.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Next slide, please. The commencement speaker at our May commencement was Bill Wolf. Dr. Wolf was president of the National Academy of Engineering for about 11 years. And one of his comments in his speech was that 95% of Americans aren't knowledgeable enough to even have a discussion about technological issues facing this country. And it's a catastrophe. But in the face of that, we continue to have very large incoming classes with students primarily interested in engineering. We're headed for between 1,020 and 1,030 new students, and again, 80 to 85% of them are going to be majoring in engineering. We've got 29 states represented at the undergraduate level, very high average ACT score, up at 10% in the nation. And these students have excelled in high school. Next slide. We've made some very good strategic tenure track faculty hires. We've filled 16 positions, and we're excited to report that 6 of the 16 are women. As we get more and more females at the university, we're up at almost 1,400 women. It's really important that we have role models in the faculty for these female students. And we're closing in on, we hope, a very important endowed chaired position. We've made an offer to a woman, and we're hopeful that she'll accept. This is in chemistry. Next slide. We've made 3 very important strategic hires this year. Dr. Thalasi Kumar is our new Director of Institutional Research and Assessment. Next slide. Shanith Emanuel is our newly hired Director of Human Resources and Affirmative Action. Next slide. And Margaret Klein is our new Chief Information Officer. We have a very full schedule of summer camps. We have 18 different summer camps, which involves young folks from the first grade through seniors in high school. Perhaps the one that's received the most national attention is the Explosives Camp. We have 3 week-long sessions there, and 70% of the high school students who go to our Explosives Camp end up coming to Rolla as students a year or 2 later. Next slide.
Jack, explain that Explosive Camp.
We had a wonderful 2-page article in the New York Times about a year ago. These are high school students from around the country. We had one from Hawaii last summer, and they live on campus for a week and blow up watermelons and other things, and learn how to handle explosives. And many of these students end up majoring in mining engineering, for example, petroleum engineering. And it's the only program of its kind in the country. We have a mine on campus, and it's a real niche area for us. We know of no other program in the United States in explosives engineering. Next slide. Last April I mentioned our men's swim team finishing second in the nation and our women's basketball team reaching the final 16 in the NCAA tournament. I just want to mention a few other things. We've had quite a year in athletics. Last week, we were chosen as one of only 6 institutions in the NCAA Division II as a recipient of the Diversity in Athletics Award in the category of gender equity compliance. And 12 members of our track and field teams have been selected to the Great Lakes Valley Conference All-League Squad. That's the conference that we compete in. Next. And 2 of our pole vaulters have earned All-American awards from the U.S. Track and Field Cross Country Coaches Association, and 2 of our swim team members have been named to the ESPN, the magazine Academic All-District team. Next. And finally, Candy Weinberg, just an amazing athlete. She's been selected to the ESPN, the magazine Academic All-America second team. I don't know what she would have to do to make the first team. I don't have time to go through her statistics, but next slide. I just want to touch on a couple of examples of research going on campus in the very important areas of energy and the environment. Next slide. Microalgae, sustainable feedstock for biofuels. The Missouri Life Sciences Research Board is supporting this research, and we're developing methods to use algae biomass as a renewable feedstock for fuels. And as important, we're developing practical and environmentally responsible methods of carbon dioxide capture. You hear about this every day in the news, and sequestration of carbon dioxide. Next. Basically, microalgae represents a higher yielding new bio-based feedstock that does not compete with current food and feed production. Much of the non-productive farmland in the country that has adequate sunlight and water reserves can be developed for this use, and the potential for recycling carbon dioxide is tremendous. Next. Another example, phytoforensics. You've probably never heard of that word before. Tree sampling for groundwater analysis. Next slide. It turns out that plants and trees interact intimately with their environment, and both above and beyond, below ground, and they store chemical signatures of their past exposures. So using new techniques and analytical instruments that we've developed at Missouri S&T, where we have some patent protection pending, we can now assess this data and provide cheaper, more rapid contamination studies to protect human health. Next slide. Another example, EcoCar, the next challenge. We've been selected as one of only 17 university groups from the U.S. and Canada to compete in a 3-year competition to test students' abilities to re-engineer a Saturn vehicle to achieve improved fuel economy, reduced greenhouse gas emissions, while retaining the vehicle's performance and consumer appeal. Next slide. This is a big deal for us. In the first year, we're going to develop our designs. The second and third years, we're actually going to build the vehicle, test it, and in years 2 and 3, actually compete in a week-long competition with the other 16 universities. Next slide. Our Formula SAE team just finished 8th in the nation in a big competition at the Michigan International Speedway. And next slide. This is another wake-up call for this nation. Until about 5 years ago, all of the competitors in this big deal competition were U.S. institutions. And here are the top 8 finishes this year. 5 of the 8 come from other countries. And in fact, Missouri S&T finished 3rd behind Wisconsin and Cornell for U.S. universities. Next slide. Our solar car team is getting ready to compete. The race this year starts in Dallas and ends up in Calgary. And we've had tremendous success in this high-profile competition. We won the national championship in '99, and you can see we finished 2nd. We won it again in '03. We finished 4th in '05. This is an every other year competition. Next slide. And just to a change of pace, I've been talking about energy and the environment research. We have an outstanding history department, in case you didn't know. And as an example, John C. McManus has just been selected as the 2008 Missouri Conference on History Book Award winner. and he's been named to the History News Network's Top Young Historians list, and he's the author of 4 books. I believe that's it. Thank you very much.
Last but not least, Chancellor Payne.
Thank you very much. I want to give you, first of all, an update on some hiring and personnel positions at the university. As some of you know, recently we hired a brand new provost from Arizona State University, Gail Hackett. Gail, if you raise your hand or stand just a minute. And we're very excited about having Dr. Hackett here. Arizona State is one of the most dynamic, rapidly growing universities in the country. We think they're doing great things, and Gail is providing excellent leadership. You've been here, what, 3 months, 2 months now? Yeah. And she's a terrific hire. We think we got the best provost in the pools in the country, and so we're very proud to have her here. We also recently hired a new director of the Kansas City Rep Theater, and Eric Rosen, who again is somebody who's very prominent nationally. Eric is, since we hired him, has had a play accepted for performance at the Lincoln Center in New York City. So we think that he'll raise the rep profile even higher. He's quite a person, and when that's performed in New York, I'll make sure that you all know in case you want to go up and see that. We have some searches underway right now as well. Three dean searches in particular. We've recently made an offer for a dean of the School of Computing and Engineering, and are negotiating that right now and hope to have that finalized very quickly. We're excited about that. We have almost completed a search for a dean of the Conservatory of Music and Dance as well. We're down to 2 finalists. We were very gratified at this pool. We had sitting Big Ten deans in that pool. We had a terrific pool of people. Conservatory is a very appealing job, and we've got 2 very dynamic finalists, and should have that completed, I think, in the next few weeks. We are beginning a search for the dean of the Block School of Business and Public Administration. The selection committee has been formed, and we'll begin the search shortly. This will actually probably be the hardest search we do. Business dean candidates aren't that numerous, and so but it'll be an exciting, high-profile search in Kansas City. And any ideas or suggestions that you have, we'd be more than happy to have. Speaking of the Block School, some interesting rankings came out not long ago in the Financial Times that I think speak of some of the things that have been happening in the Block School. The Executive MBA is ranked 36 among all U.S. universities and 16th among U.S. public universities by the Financial Times. And we were complimented in particular on measuring our students' career progress. The Executive MBA program has been a real success for us, and we're quite pleased with it. Another big success, our theater department, as most of you know, is a nationally prominent theater department, and we were recently named one of 10 core professional design training programs by the New York City-based Fund for the Development of Professional Theater Arts. The other programs were schools like Yale, UC San Diego, Brandeis. Juilliard was in the second 10, so it was tremendous competition, and what this really means, it opens all kinds of avenues for our students, for funding for our theater program. Very prestigious to be named in that way. And I think all of you know the dental school is consistently ranked among the top 3 to 5 programs in the country in their board scores. If we go back to, we have a number of summer activities as well. But nothing on our campus explodes, not on purpose anyway, though. So if there's any explosion, I guarantee it'll be an accident. But we do have 10 athletic camps with about 440 participants: basketball, soccer, a range of things, and it's a lot of fun to have kids on campus. We also make full use of our residential capacity during the summer as well. We have interns from a number of different community partners like Stowers and Cerners who are there for short periods of time, who stay on our campus, and almost 2,000 people. So that means that we use our residential capacity much of the year. That doesn't sit fallow. And then we have residential life camps to Upward Bound, Pathways to Nursing. Nursing and medicine both participate in that. Our history department and our engineering department, our engineering program, are also doing summer workshops sponsored by the National Endowment for the Humanities and National Science Foundation, respectively. And the first of these, the history workshop, brings high school teachers to campus, and the pre-engineering program brings prospective students. The next slide. A little bit on our enrollment, and I want to break it down a little bit because this is the most important slide I'm going to put up here today. One of a major focus for us has been improving our student retention. We not only want to recruit students, we want to retain them and graduate them. It's really important to us that our students be successful. It's the single most important thing we do. And this slide, I think, highlights some of the success we're having. Our total continuing students who've registered is up 23% this year. And the total student credit hours they've registered for is up over 20%. Now, what this means is that more of our students, or fewer of our students, are dropping out or transferring somewhere else, but significantly more of our students are coming back next year. And we think this increase in continuing students really is the most important thing we have going on right now. The best way to recruit students is to keep the ones you have, and that's what we're trying. So we expect a large increase in the number of continuing students and increase in our retention rates. Next slide. We also have a significant increase in our new freshmen coming in. We have a 12% increase in admissions this time of year, and conservatively we expect at least a 6% increase in the number of first-time freshmen, perhaps be more than that. And you can see that spans both of these will show you that these things are spanning all ethnic groups as well. We have, again, increases among African Americans, Hispanics, just across the board. Our next slide. Like St. Louis, we have a significant number of students who transfer, and again, we have significant increases in the number of transfer admits, and we expect about a 10% increase in our transfer students as well. We recently signed an articulation agreement with Kansas City, Kansas Community College, so we have very good articulation agreements with all of our community college partners, and we expect a significant increase there as well. So our next slide. We expect, anyway, a significant increase in our enrollment, and we're particularly pleased that a significant part of that increase will be returning students. Some achievements. We had 2 of our faculty members receive Guggenheim fellowships. This is a very prestigious award, something that's very hard to achieve. Professor Gowan is in art. Professor Rudy is in music. And just a comment about Professor Rudy. He's on our composition faculty. We have 4 faculty members in music composition. Now all 4 have received Guggenheims at one point in their career. There are 3 other universities in the country where this has happened: Michigan, Rice, and the Conservatory in Cincinnati. We think that speaks volumes about the quality of the conservatory, and particularly this composition faculty. They really are a world-class group. We also had a faculty member in engineering receive a patent for work on eye scans. This is basically, a security measure where you can scan somebody's eye for personal identification, and we're very pleased with the patent there. Another engineering faculty member has received a large NSF grant for concrete fracture modeling. Another thing that's happened on our campus is particularly prestigious, and remember that we're one of our major missions is in the arts. We have a creative writing magazine that's been around a long time, since the 1930s, and published a number of very prominent writers. This year it was honored by the American Society of Magazine Editors with their top prize for essays, the Ellie. The runner-ups were the New Yorker, Harper's, and the Atlantic. And so that tells you quite a bit about it. This is something that people don't think about very much on our campus, but nationally this New Letters is very well known. They published early Hemingway stuff. They published Joyce Carol Oates, a number of very prominent authors as they began. And I think this is the 2nd year in a row they were nominated for this award. They were the runner-up last year. The New Yorker was also a runner-up last year. Georgia Review won it. But this award was made earlier this month in New York City. So it speaks wonders for what they're doing. President Bush was in town recently as well, and he was there to award Ashley Knight, one of our dental students, a President's Volunteer Service Award. Again, quite an honor. This is a student who goes above and beyond the call of duty in her work as a dental student, volunteering and providing dental services. And this kind of national award really, I think, speaks volumes about the dental school. The last thing, more about our engineering, our steel bridge team won first place at the regional competition for the third year in a row, and they were 7th in the nation, just ahead of Georgia Tech. So we've got good things going on across our campus. We're particularly pleased with some of the honors that our people in fine and performing arts have achieved. But across the board, our faculty are doing well, and we're quite proud of them. We appreciate your support for all of our efforts. Thank you.
Can I ask one question?
Yes.
And that is, you got that 23% increase of keeping your students on retention.
Right.
What was your main focus on that?
Well, there have been a number of things. And Mel Tyler, raise your hand back there. He is a key point person. Gail Hackett's one of the nation's experts in this. One of the things I think we've gotten is better advising. Mel's paid close attention to trying to get more students living on campus, I think more residential students, and Mel has made some scholarships available for students to live on campus. If you look at student success, the students who live on campus do better, and so Mel is focused on trying to get students there. We've also focused our financial aid to try to help people across the 4 years. It's not just enough to give them a scholarship to get them there, but to try to keep them across the 4-year period. So there are a combination of things. The last thing I should say, most of our classes, we have very few large classes. Only 7% of our classes have 50 or more students. So most of our students get to know their faculty members, and you were able to meet one of those, Kathleen Kilway, last night. When you can meet and work with a faculty member like Kathleen, that really helps. I mean, there's nothing else you can do better than having somebody like Kathleen in a classroom.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank the chancellors, and I think we certainly have a lot of things to talk about, and I think this routine certainly will keep us refreshed on what's going on the campuses. So with that, I'd like to...
Can I inject something quickly?
Yes.
I'll do it quickly. In previous curator meetings, the chancellors reported on things that they have done in the community, for the community partnerships. This morning we heard Greg Steinoff and Rob Monsies talk about the importance of community partnerships and what the universities can do for their communities. There was an article recently in the May 16th Chronicle of Higher Education that kind of caught my eye. It's written by a president of a major university, and the headline is, "Even in hard times, colleges should help their communities." And if I could pull just one statement out of the entire article and quote it, it says, "The connections between universities and our communities are essential to our core functions and are increasingly vital to our continuing success, as well as the long-term prosperity of our nation's cities, regions, and states." It's my sense from a previous report that we're doing a pretty darn good job of partnering with our local communities and regions, and certainly the state. And I want to commend the 4 campuses for that, and hope that we continue to put emphasis on those things, which I think are very, very important for the economic health of the cities, the regions, and the state. And that's all I wanted to say.
Thanks for that comment. Okay, with that, I'd like to ask Dr. Lamb to update us on the important topic of e-learning and distance education.
Thank you, President Forsey, Chairwoman Walker, and board members. As you know, the University of Missouri has an obligation as a land-granted university to provide educational access to Missouri citizens. When President Forsey became president earlier this year, he asked me to explore the area of online or distance education, e-learning, as a way to enhance accessibility. So today I'd like to update you on our progress. We've been at this only a little while, informally in January, formally since late March. We should first begin by discussing a sea change that has occurred and is continuing to occur in student learning by the use of technology. Now, there are those who would tell you that the future of education will no longer be classrooms full of eager students, but rather students learning via the internet, iPod, television, social media like Facebook and YouTube and other electronic means. While we can't determine the exact nature and extent of this change, I rather belong to a group that acknowledges university is going to be considerably different in the future, but I doubt if the campus as we know it will not exist. I do not believe it will be an entirely virtual experience. But who can know for sure? After all, it was Ken Olson, chairman of DEC, who in 1977 said, "There's no reason in the world anyone would want a computer in their home. No reason." And he was an industry leader. Couple this dynamic with changes in demographics in the past 20 years, and we further set the stage for educational environment that looks different in the coming years. According to the National Center for Education Statistics, the 20 to 24-year-old age group in higher ed grew 12%. The 24 to 29-year-old age group grew 2.5%. The 30 to 34-year-old age group, hard to say, in higher ed grew less than 1%. And yet we know there are many more in this group yet to be served. Further, we know that the number of high school graduates in Missouri will decline during the next several years. So with change inevitable, several questions arise. And when I began to look at this, these were the questions we asked and asking the task force people working with me to consider. What will the university look like in 20 years? What will the students' technological expectations be? What do we need to do to anticipate this change? How do we adapt how we teach to meet this growing trend when we can't predict the educational breakthroughs and technological developments in the next decade or even in the next year? How can we use technology to meet the land-grant mission of the university? What kind of learners and what kind of type of learning do we have, and what will we have in the future? How can we meet the demands of today's online educational market? There are two types or two parts of the online market that we will address. One is university credit programs, and those that can be scaled, and I'll talk a little more about that later. The other is non-credit, continuing education and professional development courses that are necessary in several professional areas, such as engineering, education, and the broad health professions, for example. We're doing some of those now, and we can do more. We have several examples that are coming up that will be, I think, better known in the next 6 to 12 months, arrangements and liaisons with health professions, for example, on the MU campus. In general, we can recognize that there are two groups of students, traditional age, non-traditional age. We've talked about those in the past. The non-traditional age student is working, raising a family, while trying to earn a degree, and often the employer pays for part or all of their education. This is a major market. For traditional students, we know that their aptitude for technology is high. Students in elementary through high school routinely incorporate technology in their studies. We know, for example, that children in grade school are texting each other and their parents, and that their expectations regarding the use of technology in learning will be even greater when they reach high school and college. So we're looking at all forms of e-learning. While adapting to these new technologies may be more difficult for non-traditional students, we do know that it will offer them the opportunity to learn where they want and when they want. This is a major boon for their busy lives, and it is a requirement in offering programs to them. In other words, learning schedules must be flexible for this group, and that is absolutely critical. With this framework in mind, I formed a task force of people in our universities to help us examine the entire area of technology-based education. Members come from each campus and the system, and they bring their own particular niche of understanding about the complex questions before us. And I want to just mention these people so that you'll know some of them, if not all of them. Vice Presidents Gary Allen and Steve Graham, I was going to say volunteered, were pleased to join me in leading this effort and have been extremely helpful. And I'll mention some of the rest as we go through. Monica Beglau is an EMINS National Center Coordinator on the campus of MU, and a bit out of our faculty, but one of the real explorers. Linda Bennett is a faculty member in the College of Education at MU and involved in online. Pam Benoit heads a graduate school and has taught online. Doug Carroll and Bill Doughton from MS&T are both deeply involved in their work. Linda Cupp was introduced a little bit ago, and she's been involved in this from the beginning. She was one of the first ones that we turned to, and I turned to, when we were just meeting as an informal group. Gail Hackett, the new provost who's been introduced, comes from Arizona State, where she was deeply involved in this at Arizona State. Rosemary Hogan from the health professions has been involved. Jennifer Hollingshead, while listed as University Communications, we all know that her background is marketing, and marketing is a deep part of online education. Mike Hosokawa from Family and Community Medicine is not an online person, but he's an innovator in education, deeply involved in the first development of problem-based education in the School of Medicine, and a really good thinker. Robert Keel in sociology at UMSL, Patricia Markin in pharmacy from UMKC, Tom Walker, head of continuing education at UMSL, and Dana Vessel, who is involved in faculty development, technology, education technology on the MU campus. So we have a real spread of some wonderful expertise. People are involved at different levels who are helping us examine this. And what are we looking at? Well, we're trying to analyze our current state of readiness. We're reviewing various university organizational models by visiting some universities. I'll talk about that. We're reviewing possible business models, implementation schedules. We need to identify programs that can be scaled. Not everything can, but there are some that can be, and we need to be able to do that. We also need to identify cooperative programs on our University of Missouri campuses. We're doing this by several means. We have a lot of expertise in the group, so we've formed subgroups who are going to report back to the group itself on each of the areas that we need to look at. We're bringing in consultants in several areas involved, and we're visiting several universities that have brought successful online programs to scale. I have visited a couple alone. Members of the task force have gone to others. For example, I went to the University of Illinois that's about a year ahead of us. Steve and Gary and I went to Penn State University and spent time there. They're one of the pioneers. We took a team of members to the University of Maryland University College campus, and they're beyond the pioneers. They've been at the whole area of military education and off-campus education since 1947. They have 92,000 students involved in online and face-to-face education off the campus. We have a group going next week, I think, to the University of Texas Telecampus, which is another well-known organization. And I'm going to visit Colorado State University that's about 5.5 months ahead of us and pick their brain a little bit. My responsibility in this is to bring a recommendation to the President that will include a business plan and an organization model. I anticipate doing this in November. There are several options available to us today, and it's important that we consider all of them. The first is online education, which we define as programs and courses offered through the Internet in an asynchronous manner, including both credit and professional development courses. Another is the blended courses, which combines distance education with some face-to-face, seminars, example. And then there's hybrid learning, which includes a combination of traditional classroom and online learning. And finally, there's another group called differentiated media, which includes a combination of some of the technologies that I mentioned earlier. Online learning is probably the easiest to address most directly. Blended and hybrid learning are also occurring now and will grow over time with support of faculty and the support for faculty to expand it. While sometimes the physical classroom space is not always conducive to adapting to technological advances, this is changing as we're able to renovate classrooms. We know, for example, that the growth in online education has been staggering in the last several years. The Sloan Consortium, which is probably acknowledged as the top, did a survey and found that nearly 20% of all U.S. higher educations were taking at least one online course. The 9.7% growth for online enrollments far exceeds the 1.5% growth in the overall higher education student population. The following chart shows a dramatic increases in online enrollment compared to total enrollment during a 5-year period. As you can see, the online enrollment is nearly double. The key to online learning programs for non-traditional students is that they must be market-based and student-centered. It means the offerings must be flexible to meet the time and place expectations of the adult learners. Anything else will not succeed, nor can it be scaled. Through our 4 campuses, the university is offering more than 40 programs in various online offerings. The inventory of these programs from the campuses show that online courses comprise around 3% of the total semester credit hours of the system. There are some programs now offered and succeeding on each campus. And they vary, of course, by the campus itself. There's a very focused program at Missouri S&T, the program in engineering management offered at the Boeing Corporation. Then there are more general programs and some specific programs on other campuses related to their specific missions. In general, these have been developed separately on each campus without the benefit of coordination or assistance to scale. An exception is the PhD in nursing, which is a cooperative program among the 3 colleges of nursing. I'm visiting deans throughout the system. I've talked with all of the chancellors, and I think in one way or another with the provosts, to talk with the deans where we believe there is additional capability to determine what they're doing now, what we believe they can do, what they would like to do. And I think there's clearly an educational market for non-traditional students for academic credit, for certification, and for continuing ed credits, what I would call professional credits. We have the capability of broadening our offerings in each of these areas. Regarding the market, although 85% of the educational institutions have government assistance, the for-profit online universities have thrived in this market. Phoenix University has 330,000 students. There was an article, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, in the Chronicle, which was talking about their measurement of their students' success, which is rather interesting because they've always measured in profit before. Now they're talking about, we're doing some things the rest of you don't think we're doing, and we're succeeding in it. And it's a very interesting comparison. More and more public land-grant research institutions are recognizing this market and their obligation for access, and we should do as well. In order for the university to be successful, there are certain areas that must be addressed, and those are the ones we're looking hard at. There must be a team approach to the development of online instruction, including content, instructional design to adapt content to online format, and offer more tools for students, and IT to support that instruction. Faculty development and support. And I'd comment at this point, just to remind everybody, technology is not learning. Technology is a way to learn and a way to help students learn. Faculty development and support is terribly important and a key to it. Student services, customer relations, has to be a key to this. Remember I said it was market-driven and student-centered. Quality and assessment, this is outcomes-based. Program planning, marketing is key to it. Program management, the organizational model and business plan, and technology sponsors and partners. We believe that there are major firms that are willing to assist us in this area, and they can become very important. So how does all this fit into the university's mission? It isn't that we are not now involved in online learning. We are. The question is, how can we scale it and reach more people with our excellent programs? As a part of a land-grant mission, expanding online education is an obvious way to expand our offerings to the state. 100 years ago or so, the university took the first steps in positioning people throughout the state, provided the first forms of distance education through correspondence courses. In the 21st century, our method may be different, but our goal to make higher education accessible to all who want it and can qualify is still the same. We can offer convenience through flexibility of time and place. This will become critical to meeting the market demands of the adult learner population, which is also becoming increasingly more important to the traditional student. We can stimulate more offerings, offer coordination to the offerings, increase cooperative partnering programs in our system, and prevent duplication. We can provide scalability to the online programs for which there is a larger market, and we can reach even more people with more programs. We can provide an online course and program link to our international partners. An example would be for us in our long involvement with the University of Western Cape in South Africa, but there will be others as well. And finally, the University of Missouri is a strong brand, and we can further position ourselves as the foremost educational leader in the state. Region, and I think focused on our international partnerships. When you think of state, region, and international touches, we have those capabilities. We believe this is our responsibility. I think we're well on the way to making contributions that will carry the university into the coming decades and beyond. We need to look at all of these possibilities, and we're making that very attempt to do that. Thank you for your time this morning. I'd be happy to answer any questions and deflect others.
Gordon, I know this is going to be rather difficult, but how big is this industry?
Industry is growing so fast that I would say there are millions of enrollment possibilities out there.
It's a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Oh, absolutely.
You don't have any idea what
the total is right now in terms of the dollars? No. But it's over billions, and there's no question. Yeah.
Gordon, this issue came up a couple of years ago. I think you got a destination campus like Columbia where, frankly, academics is part of the equation, but getting the kids out of the house and there's a lot of other stuff going on other than just academics. My concern, I guess I expressed this a couple of years ago, maybe Glenn Cope would be a better person, is these non-traditional campuses or non-traditional students such as UMSL has a good percentage of those. Glenn, is University of Phoenix a big competitor of yours right now, and how are these online universities already affecting our enrollment or competition?
They are competitors with us right now. We're not sure exactly how many students they're taking because since they have different enrollment requirements, some of the students that go to University of Phoenix wouldn't qualify for University of Missouri admission. But for transfer students, for older adults returning, Phoenix and a number of other both for-profit and non-profit private universities are definitely competing with us. We're looking now, we had a workshop a week ago, and we're looking now at what ways we can change our course offerings, offer different time frames, offer different, an 8-week course instead of a 16-week course, online, hybrid, and other kinds of distance methods so that we can compete successfully with the Phoenixes for the students that are eligible to enroll in a University of Missouri campus. So it is definitely a competitor.
What are the three variables that, I would imagine cost would be one. What other a big one for these
convenience
online?
Is a major one for the students. They really want to be able to, in some cases, take classes online, asynchronously, when they want them, when it fits into their schedule. So that's one aspect of convenience. Another aspect is where it is and what the time frame of the course is. We're really discovering that the Phoenixes do short courses. They do other things. We have a competitor in town, Fonfon University, which offers 8 weeks or 6 weeks and 8-week courses that you take one after the other and just take one course at a time instead of taking multiple courses to get the same time frame. So convenience on various measures is really the second one. And the third one is having the model of whatever the degree programs that the students want to have, so that we're looking very carefully at what our market is. And I think Vice President Lamb has been very helpful, and his task force will be helpful in that too, because marketing to the students, market research to make sure we're offering the right things, and then marketing to them so that they understand that they can come to a University of Missouri campus, they can come to UMSL, and enjoy competing and succeeding in the area that they're interested in.
Because someone from your campus described to me where you sit at your computer at home, the course is actually playing out where the instructor is online live. Rather than raise your hand and ask questions, you actually instant message on the computer. And if you've got a Penn State or wherever the institution out in California, University of Phoenix, whoever it may be, again, cost would be, where do I apply? Cost, but location doesn't really matter at that point. So I think UMSL in particular, I mean, I think is going to be, over the next 5 or 10 years, is going to be in for a challenge. I think he's in for a challenge, or we really need to compete on that issue. I don't know how to do it.
That's the whole point. This
Yeah.
is a trend, and as opposed to, if students want to learn that way, as opposed to them going to Penn State or Phoenix or Capella, then why not go to the University of Missouri for their service needs? So.
And Gary, good. I mean, I'm online, and Gary Forsey has got some podcast. You know, I can just. You want to hear what I say? You know, it doesn't matter where I am. I download a podcast that Gary Forsey put on the computer. I mean, you're on top of the game there. But I think we're in for a challenge.
I think I read someplace where the University of Phoenix only graduate like 3% of their total.
They have a very small graduation rate. We have a much higher graduation rate in all of our campuses.
Where I think there's a tremendous potential, I think it can be in the preparation of high school students for college. I think that's an area you haven't covered. I'll probably put this little ad for myself, but we have a company called Class Scene, and it's a secured website for a high school and grade school and school districts where there's no obscenities, there's no nudity, the predators, or we have it. It's a relatively new company, but we will have, hopefully in 18 months, we will have over 4 million students as customers, and that's not counting the parents, the siblings of those students, the uncles, and I think, Gordon, some of our guys would like to talk to you about maybe that would be an entree for you to help, because we've had public forums throughout the country, and one of the things that they tell us is, you know, it's good to pass pictures, all this kind of thing, and whatever you want to do, your grandmother, your grandfather, but what they really need is somewhat like tutoring. In other words, help prepare a student that has some deficiency, let's say in mathematics. They'd like to see that on there, and the bell just rang when you came up with this, because that would be something, and I think our guys would really like to talk to you about that.
We'd be glad to talk to them. I would mention, related to what Curia Wassing was saying, and I go back again, this is market-driven and student-centered, and you really have to pay attention to the market. Part of that market is cost, but part of the market also is what else is out there, what's the competition. To that point, one of the consultants we brought in, free consultant as a matter of fact, because of Steve Graham's and my connections with this individual, was Mike Offerman, president of Capella University, which is a strong for-profit provider in this area. And he spent a day with us, actually more than a day. And that was very, very helpful. So we're looking at all the kinds of people who are doing this kind of work, finding out everything we can find out. I leave Sunday evening to go to a national conference, and received word on an email this morning from a person I've been talking with at Michigan State who heads their program, where that person has set me up for a dinner with the top 5 people who have introduced scaled programs in the last 5 years. So we're making every contact that we can make, and I thank you for your time.
I think this is an important area, one we're going to put the spotlight on. Again, it's not about next semester or next year. This is about 5 years, and to lay the foundation for the university. It's important to take the right amount of time to plan and to be sure that we've got the structure in place to support that changing environment. And with that, I think that's a good lead-in to Dr. Gary Allen. We thought it was important, probably on an annual basis, to update you on technology and the important role that it plays in all of what we're talking about, whether it's economic development, research, and I think the growing understanding of the important role that IT plays in that. So, Gary?
Thank you. Good morning, Chairwoman Walker, members of the board, ladies and gentlemen. I'm pleased to be able to give you an update on the activities of the university's information technology organizations. I'm going to try to highlight a few of the current initiatives that we're working on and give a sense of the environmental drivers that are having an impact on the services that we are providing and how we provide them. and then also follow up and reiterate some of the themes you've already heard this morning in terms of strategic directions that we're taking to try to best prepare the university for its future. I'll start with our mission statement, and as you can see, this is very similar to the high-level mission statement for the university as a whole. And President Forsey referenced this earlier already this morning. The message here is really simple and profound. There's no aspect of university operations that's not dependent on IT. It's in use everywhere across the enterprise and is a critical required enabler of everything that the university does. This slide shows a high-level list of the major IT organizations within the university. There's centrally managed IT units on each of the campuses and in the hospital. And I'm going to spend some time talking about what those groups do. I want to mention in passing a couple of other smaller, more specially focused organizations. The Library Systems Office, which provides automation support to all our university libraries and assists in negotiating and managing contracts for electronic resources. Mobius is an affiliated organization that is hosted by the University of Missouri. It's actually a consortium of more than 60 libraries across the state, public, private, and others, and provides online access to a union catalog, which currently has more than 27 million items, 2/3 of which are unique, and thereby provides a leverage for the acquisition and distribution of library holdings, preventing unnecessary duplication. For the next few slides, I'm going to try to explain at a very high level, and given the constraints of time, what it is that IT does in the university. Some of these have already been hit this morning. Teaching and learning, which includes course management systems, electronic portfolios, provision and management of technical infrastructure in classrooms. Patient care would include all the IT-dependent services for diagnostic investigations and therapeutic interventions, management of the electronic medical record systems, and billing and other administrative activities in the hospital. Network services is the provision of data networking to all of our end users. That's both wired and wireless, allowing our users to connect to both local and remote services. The challenges here relate to our ability to provide anytime, anywhere connectivity to meet the expectations of our end users, and in implementing networks with capacity to deal with the exponential growth in bandwidth demands. Customer service refers to several tiers of direct support for end users in the form of help desks, adaptive computing for individuals with disabilities, repair services, technology training, and service request management. Telecommunications relates to all things related to voice, provision of dial tone, voicemail, teleconferencing, automated call distribution systems. It also includes radio, satellite, cable television, and video transmissions of other forms. We're experiencing a convergence of technologies in this space, notably in our move to voice over internet protocol systems, voice over IP. Voice communications are being transmitted over our data networks. We're also experiencing convergence in the form of unified messaging, where voicemail and email messages are accessible by individual users through their computers or on handheld devices. Research support refers to support for high-performance computing and networking activities, mass data storage, which is increasingly demanded by our researchers, and I'm going to mention that again in a little bit. Library systems were already mentioned. Systems and operations refers to back-end services. This is the management of our primary and backup data centers and their associated physical plants, cooling and electrical infrastructure to support the housing of server farms and data storage arrays. In our primary Columbia Data Center, we currently manage more than 600 servers and more than 300 terabytes of university information. Systems and operations is also critical to disaster recovery and business continuity planning. Applications refers to all enterprise software applications that I've not mentioned already. It includes our PeopleSoft Oracle administrative systems that support HR, finance, and student administration. A couple of months ago, we had a signature moment when the student admissions component of PeopleSoft went into production in the St. Louis campus, represented a very successful deployment, by the way, Signature in the sense that it marks the first time since the beginning of the PeopleSoft effort where all the campuses had the core modules in operation since we began this effort. Applications also includes our imaging, where we digitize hard copy documents, for example, vouchers or HR records, and store them in index searchable digital archives. Includes support for alumni and development activities and customized applications development that are required by subsets of the university user community. Includes the support for reporting services, where we are responsible for building data warehouses and data marts to facilitate reporting for compliance and decision-making purposes. Applications in general is an area of very rapid change as we deploy new systems that are increasingly directed at self-service. Examples include modules that allow individuals within the university community to maintain their own biographical data, view their benefits enrollments and retirement plans, or to enroll in our recently deployed mass notification system. Another good example is our e-procurement system, which went into production recently. These are good examples of the concept that the application of information technology is increasingly resulting in the redistribution of work. We are facilitating the migration of work activities from a few narrowly trained specialists to the edges of the organization, where each individual is responsible for maintaining data related to themselves or to their job responsibilities, instead of relying on intermediated services. This is going to continue to occur over time, this trend, and it requires us to focus on ongoing improvement to software interfaces and application functionality, and make sure that we have the training available for our staff and faculty and students so that they can take advantage of these tools. Underlying all of these aforementioned areas is information security, which is responsible for the development of policies and procedures to secure the collective information assets of the university. Specific areas of endeavor under this heading include account management, data classification and security, staff training, implementation of systems and practices supporting our compliance with mandates deriving from a variety of sources, including Gramm-Leach-Bliley, Digital Millennium Copyright Act, Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, or FERPA, and e-discovery rules. We have recently implemented a system-wide security program which encompasses the entirety of information security policies and practices across the university. It's being implemented through the active participation and leadership of all the CIOs and their individual information security teams, with working in concert with the relevant functional groups and with the advice of General Counsel. The next three slides provide just some selected examples of the scope of what we do. First one shows some statistics from our security and account management area. We manage about 150,000 active accounts within our single sign-on environment. That includes not just people, but also schedulable rooms, classrooms. We have, on an average day here in the Columbia network, up to as many as 3,000 documented intrusion attempts from the internet on our network, up to as many as 5,000 directed hacking attempts on our password stores. Some of these attacks have people behind them. Most of them anymore are automated. This is a particular challenge for us where, consistent with the university's mission, we are attempting to support access to information and open sharing and knowledge sharing and communication of data. But we also have to simultaneously act to protect key information assets from unauthorized individuals or entities. Another set of examples from the Columbia area email. This supports the MU campus, the UM offices, and other UM-located university entities. 64,000 mailboxes. We send about 171,000 messages a day. We receive 3.8 million messages from the internet, 90% of which is spam. So that's either nuisances, viruses, malicious code that is intended to violate our security posture, or phishing with the intent of identity theft. And the final slide, some examples from our enterprise applications group. These were derived from fiscal year 07, showing the number of logins, We issue about 37,000 paychecks a month. Put 2.2 million new document images into our imaging archive. Distribute a great deal of aid funds and scholarship funds through our system. So I think these collectively provide a pretty good sense of what we do. I want to spend a few minutes talking about Mornet, and then talk a little bit about a specific initiative that we've undertaken recently to improve our posture as it relates to networking. Mornet is an independent operating unit of the University of Missouri system. It's funded by state appropriations, member fees, and E-rate compensation reimbursement from the feds. The governance is overseen by a Mornet Council, which represents Mornet's constituents, and they are listed here. In addition to the university, Mornet provides support for the K-12 community and the balance of public and a great deal of independent higher ed institutions in the state, supporting 1.2 million students and 113,000 faculty and staff. 5.1 million Missourians actually benefit from Mornet in the form of access that's provided to community information networks, public libraries, hospitals, and actually state government access. This slide shows a simplified view of the current Mornet backbone and the endpoints of each connected entity across the state. I show this to demonstrate both the extent of Mornet's coverage and also to point out the number of individual connections. Each of those little lines to those dots represents a contracted network service that ties a particular endpoint back to one of Mornet's hubs, which is the darkest line there on the graph, on the slide. Mornet leverages its buying power by accumulating the aggregate bandwidth demands of its constituents and therefore reduces the cost to individual members to obtain network services. Mornet also provides the university access to national high-capacity higher education fiber optic backbone networks. In fact, they manage the Gigapop in Kansas City that provides us access to the Internet 2 backbone in Kansas City. The next couple of slides I want to describe this joint effort. In an attempt to, or actually in an action to manage and to make our costs predictable over time as bandwidth increases and the associated cost increased, we are putting in place a fiber optic backbone to replace the least circuit approach that has been used heretofore. We've acquired 900 route miles through 20-year leases for fiber optic cable around the state, which Mornet will manage on our behalf. These fiber-based connections will greatly increase the capacity of the inter-campus network between the university campuses, which provides for us, really for the first time ever, the ability to develop disaster recovery and business continuity procedures that will leverage all of the campus data networks and data centers and expertise. For example, using this network, we'd be easily able to back up and restore data from one campus to another, or to provide failover services so that production instances of our services can be positioned in multiple locations, better positioning us to maintain service during disasters, and to reduce our outage periods when we are required to perform maintenance on critical systems. It also provides the ability for us to provision novel networks on the fly, for example, as experimental test beds to support networking research by our faculty. There's been a fair amount of discussion this morning about online learning and technologies in support of learning. I want to spend a few minutes talking a little bit about a different dimension of this as it relates in some ways a little bit more towards research. Mentioned earlier this morning was the rise in social networking, particularly among the nation's youth, using tools like MySpace and Facebook. These youth use these types of internet-based tools to develop and create virtual communities. You should understand that a similar phenomenon is well underway in academic research and scholarship. Increasingly, our faculty and students are developing and maintaining communities of practice that are geographically dispersed. Our faculty are just as likely to engage in research collaborations with research faculty in other institutions, either in the U.S. or around the world, as they are to collaborate with faculty colleagues on their own campuses. They are self-selecting into these virtual communities based on shared interest and expertise to solve problems that increasingly require multidisciplinary, multi-institutional research teams. And they are using technology to reduce the distance between themselves and facilitate coordination of effort. A few years ago, the NSF began using the term cyber infrastructure to refer to environments that support methods to share data acquisition, storage of massive data sets, analysis and visualization tools, and other information processing services. These include, but are not limited to, the very high-capacity networks that I've mentioned earlier. These networks connect shared instrumentation, such as electron microscopes, telescopes, climatological analysis instruments, particle accelerators, the list goes on. These are connected to supercomputers and high-powered visualization equipment and software. Cyber infrastructure is more than just hardware and software, though. It's also people, staff with both the technological and content expertise that are able to facilitate discovery and learning in an era in which we are increasingly required to manage mountains of digital data. It's exactly related to the types of job demands that Chancellor George referenced yesterday in life sciences and IT, and it's also the basis for the types of degree programs that were recently approved, which students are trained in both IT and a specific content area, for example, in the informatics programs recently established at MU and in UMKC. Let me give you an example of how cyber infrastructure is important using some real-life data. Research faculty housed just across the way here in the Bond Life Sciences Center have recently acquired a very high throughput gene sequencing device. It's being used for bovine genomic studies. I mentioned earlier that the Columbia Data Center currently manages about 300 terabytes of data. That's a fair bit of data that's been acquired over decades since we began computerizing our systems. This new device, this new single analytical tool in the Life Sciences Center is capable of producing up to 2 terabytes of raw research data every week. That should give us some pause as we consider what the university is going to need to do to manage our combined research data output and storage going forward. Let's get back to our example. So this researcher derives data from this new sequencer. He may choose to do a first pass of data analysis on our own local supercomputing facility, but then he might want to pass those results on to one of the national centers, perhaps in Pittsburgh or San Diego. Moving this larger chunk of data will obviously be facilitated by high-capacity networks, such as we are putting in place with our NGN initiative. Along the way, the researcher will need to be granted authenticated access to these remote systems, which requires a federated security model that spans institutional boundaries and is based on mutual trust relationships between our institution and the facilities at the national centers or other collaborating universities. Similar relationships must be technologically facilitated to provide access to remote databases, to compare our faculty members' results with those from other investigators, or to access libraries of documents or images to assist in interpreting their findings. This slide was put up to provide a high-level overview of the various functions and resources that are increasingly required to support contemporary research. Note that each one of these functions or resources are likely to be geographically dispersed and are accessed by means of networks that interconnect them. This next slide represents the major players in this cyber infrastructure effort, and it includes a highly diverse collection of entities, running the gamut from the faculty researchers themselves to policy groups, libraries, publishers, funding agencies. To try to summarize this section, our IT strategy must be developed with the realization that discovery and scholarship is increasingly dependent on information technology at every step of the way and is being performed by geographically dispersed teams of investigators who are brought together into virtual collaborations by networked services. I do need to point out that while the natural and physical sciences were among the first to develop these types of systems to sustain this method of research, all of the disciplines, including the arts, the humanities, and the social sciences, are using these types of approaches to accomplish their work. To be in the game, we have to be connected to the world. To be major players, We have to be more than mere consumers of data or services provided by others. We need to be net producers of shared data sets, digital repositories, computing tools, and analytical technologies that in aggregate make us a destination site for our collaborators, our funding agencies, and our corporate partners. The information technology organizations have been working and will continue to work toward these goals by deploying, managing, and providing access to cost-effective high-performance computing, analysis, and data management tools, by providing customized programming support for research, and by helping our libraries implement and maintain digital institutional repositories of research data sets and publications. We have to do this in order to reach our goals of fully engaging and interacting with the larger, truly global communities of scholarly inquiry, teaching, and learning. Provide a list here in closing of the major initiatives that we are currently engaged in. I've mentioned most of these over the course of the presentation, so I won't read them now. I will attempt to answer any questions that you may have related to the presentation. Thank you for your attention. Yes, ma'am.
When we first started this, excuse me, when we first started this system, it was kind of a challenge.
Yes, ma'am.
Does it continue to be?
Well, information technology drives change, and change is always a challenge. One of the things that we have done, I believe, to make this better, if you'll note one of those slides back there, slide 4, where I highlighted the services that we provide, and our end users were in the center of that circle. The arrows that connect us to our end users are in both directions. And the key, in my view, is to make these projects not IT projects. These are projects that are directed at improving business processes, irrespective of the nature of the particular functional area that's involved. So they need to be owners, they need to be full partners. IT is there as a service, as an enabler, but it's not about the IT, it's about the business that the university is about. And our success with deploying the student system over the last 2 years, in my view, is derived in large part to that approach.
Hey, Gary?
Yes.
Do we outsource our servers? Are they?
We do not at this moment outsource very many of our servers, although outsourcing is at the top of the list of everything that we do when we look at new projects. We have had discussions with potential vendors for outsourced services in that regard, and it has not yet become cost effective for us to do so.
You're going to continue to look at that?
Absolutely.
I think it will eventually.
I agree.
We got all of our servers in Dallas.
Just to wrap up on Dr. Allen's presentation, I think if you think of best-in-class or world-class institutions or best-in-class or world-class corporations, my experience is when you dig underneath what has made them successful, you're going to find information, you're going to find tools, you're going to find investment in technology being one of the underpinnings. So if that's part of our aspiration, which I think you heard this morning, presentation from our state colleagues, and you heard presentations yesterday and with Chairperson Walker's initiative on economic development, then continuing to ensure that we keep our investment paced along with technology and with our aspirations. I think it's going to be very important. Let me wrap up quickly with just a few items. I've had numerous questions over the last few weeks about my view of the process that we had this year with our funding from our legislative agenda, and I think it's important to give you a couple of quick perspectives on that. And Steve will go into some details about exactly what was accomplished. What I would say is that I think we had some success. I think the governor laid out a strong agenda, and I think the General Assembly, in trying to balance all the competing demands in the context of where we've been over the last 10 years, I think we should say that we had some success this year. And I think also importantly, I think we laid the groundwork for the future as a result of the types of interactions that we had, which I hope will produce a continued benefit for the university. Now let me be specific. I think we found a benefit from being very focused on our message and very focused on the number of things that we were asking for. You'll recall that we engaged all 4 campus alumni groups on 4 specific activities that we wanted to deliver that message, and I think that was respected by the General Assembly as we took that approach. Second point I would make is that one of the lessons that I learned is we're going to have to change the paradigm. We can't let education be viewed as an expense discussion only. It's going to have to be viewed as an investment discussion. We're going to have to figure out how to make that case, and I will tell you that our approach for the next budget cycle that we'll engage in late this year will be to take our plan to the key leadership, to the elected governor late this year in a business plan context to be sure that we have their understanding, and in fact we have shared buy-in about that plan, so there's a shared agenda as opposed to our agenda versus someone else's agenda. So that will be work activity that we'll take on. I think the other point that I would make is that we will need many messengers but one message. I intend to be very actively engaged personally, but I also will be asking the chancellors, I will be asking faculty, I will be asking all of our alumni groups to be very active in this process as we deliver our message, which should be a first University of Missouri message, and then certainly a specific message based on who is helping deliver that. But I want to be sure that we engage all of our associates, and we have such a great story to tell, we have to be sure that we enable our folks to do that. Finally, we will be producing a scorecard, and that scorecard will be our accountability to the General Assembly for what we said we're going to do, and our accountability for the resources that we get from that. And by the way, that scorecard will serve our alumni, it will serve our partners, it will serve all of our constituents in terms of this notion of accountability. If I heard one thing repeatedly, it was to be sure that we're providing context about what we're doing with the funds that may be considered incremental. And I think we have a running start at that, and certainly a mindset that that's going to be an important part of what we do. Last but not least, I think one of our lessons, and Steve will talk a little bit about this in his report, is term limits will produce challenges in terms of how we bring on board the next round of the elected officials. And our approaches in the past of bringing that group up to speed on the university, I mean, we're going to make good progress, and then we're going to find that we've got a big turnover that will occur this year, but a very significant turnover in 2010. We're going to have to reinvent our approach in terms of how we get that message across, and again, that will be something that will be important to do. So I just wanted to give you my perspective on the process this year and perspective on our success, and I think we should again, as we'll put out a release later this morning after the board takes action on the budget, I think there are some things that should be recognized for being successful. Second point I'd like to cover very quickly is I've made several references to the strategic planning retreat. I've given each of you a detailed copy of the retreat agenda. And let me just highlight 4 quick points. We're going to have 4 specific segments of the retreat. First will be some good old-fashioned team building in terms of what, at least I'm new to the team, but around the table of the general officers and the provost will be included, just a chance to develop that mutual confidence and mutual trust. Second segment will be to be sure that we understand at the big picture level that there are others that have been down this path of reinventing, if you will, the model that universities are confronting. Dr. Jim Duderstadt, who's been very active on this topic nationally, has been very active with one of our campuses in the last 5 years, will come in and will facilitate a discussion about that, and obviously will hopefully provide some thought starters for our group as we take that on. The third discussion will, again, set the understanding at a common level for all things about Missouri, all things that are related to the demographic changes that will be coming, all things related to how employment trends and how economic trends are developing, and one of our own will be leading that discussion related to, again, all things about our state that we should be anticipating over the next few years. So that will wrap up the first day, and then the second day is where we then engage about our strategic assets that we have, about our strategic mission, and to start to fine-tune what we're about as a university, pointing out into the future. I should let you know that we are doing a lot of preparation work for that. Each campus obviously keeps their own strategic plans updated along the way. I've been back out for remedial sessions for me to be sure that I'm as up to speed about each campus sets of strategic plans, and we're doing the same thing with University of Missouri Healthcare as well as the general officers to be sure that going into that session we're at some level of understanding about what has been in place, and that we can really spend our time, as you see on the detailed sheets, trying to fine-tune that so that we come out of there with what are the priorities by each general officer, what are the priorities by each campus to the extent they're in place today and don't need to be tuned. That's one thing, but to the extent that this will provide us work activity over the next several months to be sure that by the end of the year, which is the target, that we would be able to come back to the board to have discussions about the important things the university will be tackling over the next few years. So that is how we'll spend our time. As one of the committee activities, I'll be coming in to meet with Curator Wassinger to be sure that the board process along the way, that as we contemplate steps to take, that we're in sync with communicating to the board and interacting with the board. So we'll have a couple of board meetings between now and the end of the year where we'll have a chance to do that before we again have this version of the university strategic plan in good shape by the end of the year. Questions on that topic? Okay, last item, and again a routine, well, excuse me, let me reference this chart. In parallel, I meant to mention that the PITS management, the joint activity by the 5 groups within the Columbia campus and University of Missouri Healthcare have had a parallel planning activity going on. So again, we mentioned that to you along the way, but I just wanted to show this timeline that again shows that while the strategic plan for the university is playing out, then the PITS management activity with University of Missouri Healthcare, the School of Medicine, practice physicians, School of Nursing, and health and practice physicians is also occurring at the same time. Okay. Last item I would want to cover again very quickly and to get into a routine of reminding us that we did establish last year, and I gave you a handout that shows our University of Missouri performance report. And this is a handout that you have, a 2-pager. And this will be a routine that I will start to cover at each curators meeting. Some of these items won't change because they are annual pieces of information, but again, just to keep in front of us that we do have items that we adopted late last year as a board: our composite financial index, enrollment headcount, enrollment full-time equivalent, 6-year graduation rates, first-year retention rates, research expenditures, patent royalties, annual fundraising, extension educational context, and competitive faculty compensation investment. Those were the items that the board adopted late last year. I will have this as part of my every board meeting update in terms of how we're doing, just to keep that in front of us. And on occasion, we'll take one and go deep. I won't do that this morning, just in the essence of time, but we'll take one of the measures and go a bit deeper to be sure that we are, again, paying attention to the elements that are accountable measures to the state, accountable measures to the General Assembly. Okay. Sorry, Dave.
If any board member prior to your retreat hasn't or would like you to bring something up at the retreat, I'd encourage, in terms of planning or whatever, certainly not. You don't need to just meet with me, but if any other board member has any thoughts, you can either call Gary or myself, and let's flesh that out at the board retreat.
Great, thank you. Last time I would mention, I think we should recognize that, you know, with gasoline prices, with the constant buzz that's going on about the energy situation in the country, we as universities should be taking a leadership position on ensuring that we are efficient, that we are green from from our planning perspective. We will come back at the September meeting and give you an update on that. I think this is something that the general officers will take on at the retreat, just because all of our associates now are understanding with $4 gasoline prices that finding ways that we can operate differently, finding ways that we can contribute to this particular time, in our state as well as the country, is something that we should take on. We should provide leadership for that. So we'll come back in September and provide you an update on where we are as a university, and have discussion about this at our strategic retreat in terms of the level of importance this should be provided. With that, I will turn the time back to the chairperson.
Thank you so much. I certainly appreciate and look forward to hearing the results of the strategic planning process that you're undertaking, and I certainly believe that the information and the template that you've outlined today will do us well far into the future, so I appreciate that. At this point, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Have a second? Yes. Is there any discussion? If not, I call for the vote.
Yes.
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 At this point, I turn it over to Curator Haggard as the chair of the Academic and Student Affairs Committee.
Thank you, Cheryl. Members of our committee are Marion Cairns, Doug Russell, and David Wasinger, and Tony. I want to, first of all, tell you that I put something down for you all to read. It's how to choose a college. With all the emphasis on U.S. News and World Report, this is a different look. One little thing I'd highlight is this man who's a professor of economics at Ohio University and director of the Center for College Affordability and Productivity. He says, I think the U.S. News rankings ought to get a D. They're roughly equivalent to evaluating a chef based on the ingredients he or she uses. And at the Center for College Affordability and Productivity, a 2-year-old research organization in Washington, D.C., with a free market bent, we evaluate colleges on results, which leads right into what we're talking about today. We have one action item and one information item. That first information item is on voluntary system of accountability. We keep talking about being transparent. This is accountable. And what this man's talking about is accountable. And I think what Steve Graham is going to show you today is about that transparency. Steve?
Sure. I don't know if people need a stretch break or...
Coffee break this away.
Okay. What we're going to talk about today is the voluntary system of accountability. And as Curator Haggard talked about, there's been a national movement over the last couple of years, particularly with the Spellings Commission, to sort of focus next slide, on the concerns about accountability and transparency. And so what happens is a couple of the major national associations, the National Association for State Universities and Land-Grant Colleges and the American Association of Schools and Colleges and Universities, suggested that we come up with something that would allow institutions to be more transparent, to present their data, to try to come up with something that would be good and would allow you to compare institutions. So I would have to say they developed an excellent idea. A number of institutions were involved. The University of Missouri was very thick in the very beginning of it, including former Vice President Steve Lemkuhl, who served on this team. The whole goal was to identify what's called the college portrait. And that's a whole data set of information that's out there that presents on how well we're doing in terms of our retention rates, our graduation rates, the nature of our students, and all kinds of different things. Anything ranging from student characteristics to the campus environment to assessment. Now, I would add that this is kind of a new thing. It's very innovative, and at the same time, it has kind of something that we haven't done before, and so it has target dates for different components. And those will be rolled out kind of in order. Next slide. Next slide. Oh, I'm sorry. Back up one. The whole role of this is to try to help faculty and staff, students, the public, and governing boards and legislators to see how we're doing. Fortunately, these measures are very consistent with the things that President Forsey just talked about and many of those indicators that we have been focusing on through our performance indicators. So that was the whole goal of doing this nationally, to try to get us all in sync, to use data that we're all used to seeing, common definition, common metrics, and to make it somewhat easy. Okay, next slide. The other benefits of it, I think, for us are that it does help the University of Missouri tell its story. It's a great marketing tool and get our information out to a number of different audiences. At the same time, I think one of the things that's really important about it is it helps prospective students and families. We know that students succeed best when there's what's called a good fit. The student needs to fit academically, and they need to be integrated socially as well. So they need to have a good match. The students look and act like them, they have the same kinds of interests, and that the faculty respond. So that's a really excellent aspect of this college portrait. There's also a cost calculator. What we find is the public often dramatically overestimates what it costs to go to college. And so embedded in this will be a calculator for you students can go in and just make some quick estimates about family income, how many students are in college, how much were paid in taxes, things like that, and be able to get a quick guess as to what the institution could provide and what it would really cost them to go. There's a real nice component in there. So I think the other thing that will help us focus on informing our decisions, keep those things, just as the President talked about, that are important in front of us to let us continue to work at our retention rates and our graduation rates and things like that. So just keeps it right present in front of us. Next slide. Here quickly are some of the key components of this college profile. And I'll show you some examples. I should also add that we developed for your benefit a little short frequently asked questions section that's in your board materials to sort of highlight some of the key questions you might have. The first part of the profile talks about student characteristics. The next text about financial aid and admissions. The next section is on campus community. And then the last two sections focus on assessments that we would do of our students, both in terms of their perceptions of interactions on campus and in regards to student learning. The student learning piece is probably, back one slide, is the one that'll probably come up come up the slowest because there's certain instruments that we have to work out and there's some controversy about them. One of the things about what we're finding about the student learning is that they're very highly correlated to entering measures like ACT and SAT, or highly correlated to majors and things like that. So there's some controversy about how those will roll out. All the other things we're actively doing now. Next slide. All of the University of Missouri institutions came on as early adopters. We took the challenge as the group of chancellor and provost to say that this was an important national initiative, and that we wanted to be out on the lead on this in terms of our ability to be transparent and accountable. We have the good benefit of working with the institutional research directors. Our director, Marty Eimers, worked with all 4 of the campuses, and they all signed on as early adopters, and their stuff is up now and available to the public. There's a few pieces that will have to be filled in as these different segments kind of come online, and I'll give you just a quick look at some pages. All those spots are online. You can go on and look around, but I'll give you a couple of quick snapshots right now. Next slide. As you can see, here's an example of St. Louis. Very interesting and easy to read information. Talks about the nature of the students, where the demographics behind the students. A nice feature on the right-hand side, you'll see that not only does it talk about 4-year and 6-year graduation rates, but it talks about if those students are still enrolled, if they've transferred to another institution, are still enrolled there, or perhaps if they've graduated from another institution. A really nice way of allowing us to track our students, particularly good in the metropolitan schools where we know those students move around a lot. Okay? If you look at the next page, here's a sample from Kansas City. Once again, information about what it cost. A nice calculator that kind of, I think it's gold or orangish button down there that allows you to go in different types of financial aid and information about students and the nature of the degree programs and stuff. So next slide. Here's a sample about the campus community. The buttons across the top are excellent links to other features on campus. It could be about student activities, could be about studying abroad, could be about, like in the campus on Missouri S&T, about design opportunities they have, or real-life experiences with co-op and whatever. So that's a nice feature. And then the last sample that I'll provide is just the student experiences. We know some things about college students. We know that how much time they spend on tasks. We know that if they're actively involved in their learning, that they have experiences that take them learning outside the classroom. The contact they have with other students and with faculty are all indicators of good performance and high expectations. And so those are the kinds of things that these surveys study, and then we present that information and our results by campus up in those 6 different categories. So I'll pause right there. It's a quick overview of what these things are, but I encourage you to go online. They're very neat to watch them and to interact on the website to get all that kind of different information. Curator?
We keep hearing about affordability and accessibility, and we constantly work on that. And if you'll notice, the entrance level at the University of Missouri at St. Louis, the percentage is lower, but what they are encouraging the students in that area who come from poor parents or a poor background is they work with them to get them enrolled in one of our 4 excellent junior or community colleges, to see that those credits will transfer to the university. So we have a lot of students who enter at the junior level if they have worked with the university and the community college, and there's a very close working relationship. And in fact, in the community college, which I might add is taxpayer supported to a large extent, they've had to open a new campus out in West St. Louis County, and I just think it's a wonderful opportunity for those who really can't afford school to get a good quality education at a lower price and to be able to transfer their junior year.
I would concur. They spend a lot of time and energy on that.
I can't read all those little bitty things there.
Oh, you have copies of the full pages in your...
But just looking at some of that, you can't. But in talking about the distance education, too, another important piece to put onto that profile, another way to market all that distance education, another excellent way for people to get a snapshot view.
And this is designed in such a fashion with some of those buttons and things for you to tailor it. So each institution has a chance to put its own special brand on it.
So you can manipulate the information that's presented on the website?
Absolutely. That's all fed by our IR institutions, by the campus IR, and then we can change and tailor it. So let's say, for example, the buttons, as you go to the different campuses, you'll see they have different buttons and different things they want to feature and focus on.
Now, and I don't know if this is something that's included in here, but this has been sort of brought to my attention. I have my fiance, her sister's coming to school here next year, and there's a lot of concern among high school students about what credits will transfer to the university. I'm wondering if that information is currently on the website.
I'll tell you, this is a question I don't have an answer to. I don't know. Marty? Marty Amers is the director of Institutional Research.
Well, first, the information in terms of credit allocation, that wouldn't be on the VSA, the college portrait. My assumption is that information is going to be, we're going to be able to find that on the website and on campuses, but specifically on the VSA.
Most.
Steve, can I make one other
absolutely.
Your question about what can be included on the VSA, Steve was correct in saying the links, the web links, you can change those. You can put whatever you want on those. But the other data that's on there, in terms of the enrollment and the success of students, those are exactly the same for every campus that participates in the MSA, or the VSA. So there, you cannot change those. You'll find them exactly the same across every single campus.
Thank you. So, Steve, this is kind of the academic, they've gotten tired of people referring to places like U.S., and so we're trying to get more transparency in the case. So rather than look at U.S. News and World Report, we have now adopted a process so a family should not go to U.S. News, which many consider flawed, but rather to get a better portrait, you ought to look at the VSA. Is that kind of 5 years from now, is this what families are going to be looking at then?
Well, I think that part of that was, that's part of what the whole notion was, that a couple of these national organizations said, let's take the lead rather than trying to respond to all these different agencies and commissions about what information. Let's shape something that provides everything that just about anybody could want to know, and let them check us out. And be very public about it. And the nice thing, Marty underscored, is these data are all standardized. They come from a common data set that's sort of a national accepted benchmark. And so, you know, if you're at a college, you could have a tendency to try to twist a little bit to make yourself look good or whatever. This really requires that you use those same standard definitions and kind of puts everybody on the same playing field. So that's really a nice feature.
I think it's a good step by the academic community.
I'm shocked at how neat it is, to be real honest with you. There should be a better word than that, but I think it's really cool. And I played around with a lot of the other institution stuff, looking and preparing for this, and it's common, you know, it's just, you get a good feel for it. I think it'll be really helpful to people who want to look. And stuff will be right up there in easy-to-read format. Thank you.
Good marketing tool.
Absolutely.
For students to get on and see about any of these different schools that are in it. Our second item is an action item, and it's looking at the Bachelor of Health Science degree program. Want to discuss that, Steve?
Sure. We're recommending that the board approve the Bachelor of Health Science degree program at MU. You have the full set of materials in front of you. I'll highlight just a few key features of it. Frankly, I think this is the kind of thing that we should be doing. I think this is a really good example. This is a program that will appeal to a lot of different audiences. You see there in the beginning for people that are in health-related areas. It's an excellent retention tool. That was one of the motivations of the School of Health Professions in Columbia, was to come up with something. They may have 100 students that apply for 50 spots in physical therapy or occupational therapy, and this gives them, instead of, you know, if they don't get in, transferring somewhere else or being disappointed, this gives them another closely related option. So it's also really excellent for those students that graduate from the community colleges with a degree in nursing or some other area and actually have a license to practice but don't have the undergraduate degree. So this sort of could be layered on top. So they've done a lot of good marketing on this program. As I mentioned, some of it's just a good tool. The campus is very supportive of this program. It's been vetted. It's got the support, both some early financial support as well as lots of moral support. They suspect, as you can see from the financials, that after 2 or 3 years it'll actually start to bring in more net income than the cost. The nice thing about this as well is they can sort of ramp it up according to how many students they get. It has a pretty aggressive end goal out there of about 260 majors, something like that, after about 5 years, but it can be phased in. The one thing I guess I would be remiss if I didn't mention my colleague, Chris Hagelin, who you've seen before, is a real go-getter there. He's in the audience, and if you recall, we approved a master's in public health just about 18 months ago, and Chris tells me they already have 50 students in that program as of this past spring. So really it's just unleashing Chris and that college to do what they do best, I think.
This is also another way to meet the health needs
Absolutely.
of our state, because you have a lot of people who don't get that degree to go on. They need to advance, and this is a way to incorporate and yet have less bureaucracy with it. It's all under one roof.
The goal, too, is for us to create programs that meet a market need, that respond to the workforce, that respond to what students need and want, and I think this is a perfect example of that. So I recommend it without reservation.
Questions from anybody? We have a motion on the floor.
I move that we approve the program that Steve Graham has just outlined.
And is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, it's been recommended by Interim Vice President Graham, endorsed by President Forsey, and recommended by Academic and Student Affairs Committee. Moved by David and second by will you call for the vote?
Karen?
Yes.
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 There's no further business, so is there a motion to adjourn this committee?
So moved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With this, I turn it over to Curator Erdman for the Compensation and Human Resources Committee report.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The committee met yesterday concurrently during the meeting of the Finance and Audit Committee. We considered 2 information items and 2 action items. Because all members of the Board of Curators were at that meeting, I won't go into a description of the things because we were all there. But let me just say it was a real honor to have former Curator Atkins here to talk about the sensational wellness program that the university has implemented in his name, and I think everyone enjoyed the update that we received on that program. We also had a brief conversation about the amendment to the collected rules that we have just adopted with regard to retirement benefits. On the action items, we discussed and brought forward for the board's consideration 2 items. The first is regarding the GASB 45 accrual and creating a trust to place funds for that accrual. And the second is the adoption of an executive compensation and performance policy. We probably could move adoption of both of those simultaneously if someone wanted to make said motion.
So moved.
Second that.
And moved and seconded that we adopt both action items simultaneously. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the roll.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. With that, we'll move on to Curator Karen's and External Affairs Committee.
There are no action items, but there are a couple of information items. I would like to briefly touch on something that we've been talking a lot about, and that's the University Communications is undertaking a public image research project that will help guide the university's course of action over the next several years. Their main questions: what is the value placed on public higher education in Missouri, and what messages would resonate within our state to elevate that image? University Communications gathered together the University Communications Director from each of the university's 4 campuses, the Healthcare and Extension, for a half-day meeting in Columbia in April. The group had a meaningful discussion that will discuss the course of the research, and currently they are discussing research proposals with various firms and will make a decision soon about how best to proceed. The research should be completed in 3 to 6 months. And I hope that they will bring that to us before the end of the year. The university's podcast initiative is also underway. University podcasts are available from the UM system homepage or can be downloaded to your computer, phone, or iPod. Some podcasts have received more than 1,000 hits. Interviews have ranged from the University System President Horsey to Wellness Director Laura Shop to Vice President for Research and Economic Development Mike Nichols. And that concludes my report that was mainly prepared by Jennifer Hollingshead, and she is taking the lead on this and has really done a good job. And next, I would like to call on Steve Knorr for the government relations update. We heard some from Gary, and you have a handout on this, so would you like to proceed?
Curator Cairns, thank you, and I'll try to be brief but and not repeat some of the things that have been discussed, but I thought maybe it might be helpful just to do a little bit of a summary. today on where we kind of ended up with the year and maybe look at a little bit of the term limits that we're going to have to deal with next year. Obviously, the 4.2% increase that we received for our core budget, obviously that is our lifeblood and something that is always at the top of our priority list every single year. As you know, towards the end of the year, the budget projections that were coming out were a little bit sketchy, and mainly that was due to some delay in tax returns from some of the flood areas, counties in the state. They had a delay of a few months on that. When those returns started to come in, and just this last week, it looks like the revenue is going to be back on course. For the projections there are 3.6%. They had a 3.1% growth need that they needed, so they were above that need by about 0.5%, which is good news. And so it was good news for us to have the 4.2% increase. Again, our challenge is going to be as a unit and as a group and as a team to try to go back and get that third year of that installment of 4.2% next year, and clearly that'll be back at the top of our priority list again. The next thing is the $2.4 million that we received for the UMSL equity issue. That was a good, pleasant surprise, one of the 4 criteria or priorities that the President had. During that discussion, the Senate members and the Appropriations Committee realized that we're getting close to that $10.8 million threshold to resolve this issue. They acknowledged that several times, also acknowledged that they are hopeful that they'd be able to come back and complete that UMSL equity issue next year in the Senate Appropriations, and so hopefully we are moving down the track to resolve that issue. The next item is the $95.8 million that's in for Access Missouri Scholarship. It was a $23.8 million increase. Obviously, there were some things there we were competing with from some of our other initiatives, but those are sending need-based aid scholarships out to both private and public institutions in the state. There's going to be some discussion as this program matures. It's in its first year of completion here. But looking at the percentage of funds that are going to private versus public, and also looking at the amounts of kind of $4,600 compared to the $2,150. And I think as the time goes on, you'll begin to hear more and more discussion from public institutions in particular on that issue. The next item is the UM-related items that we have. Telehealth received an increase of $858,000. I might note here that our UM-related hospital items that we have, we remain flat, and that will be something we'll need to keep working on in the future. State Historical Society increase of $100,000 to $1.6 million. And so with the last 2 items, preparing to care, faculty compensation is something we worked on all year long. I just think with the budget circumstances and a lot of the other kind of competing interests from some of the other areas, we weren't able to make kind of go across the finish line on that, but it was something that the President and many of the other general officers spent a great deal of time on. The next item is the capital improvements budget, and yesterday I think Curator Wassinger was asking about kind of what the total was. If you took it out, the total package for the year was $55 million. If you bring everything together, if you remove the Ellis Fischel and the nursing and pharmacy building at UMKC, it was approximately $9 million. I think the important point here is outside of the Lewis and Clark Discovery Initiative last year, this has really kind of been the first comprehensive package of capital funds that came through general revenue in the last about 7 or 8 years. And so this is an item from a capital standpoint with term limits that we have to keep in front of the members of the need that we have whenever you have members who kind of come and go and they don't have the opportunity to fund capital on our campuses. Over time, they begin to not really believe that that's an obligation of the state. And so I think this is a good positive step. And obviously, I won't repeat all the projects down through here, but a lot of this is planning design money that allows us to move forward. You looked at some of the capital items yesterday, and a lot of these dovetail into that area. The next item is our government relations kind of other issues that we tracked, and you're familiar with many of those. The voting student curator bill passed on the final day of session. the combat veteran tuition waiver bill that we had worked on throughout the year, dealing with undergraduates. Pretty much most of the items that we were hopeful to get included in that and make that a little bit more, accessible or friendly towards the university was taken care of, so we're pleased about that. The immigration bill passed. There was no section in there on higher education in the end, but I might note there was a section in there dealing with kind of public benefits such as housing or medical care that may have some ramifications on us, and so we've got to kind of look to see what the interpretation of that may come out. We may have to come back and try to tackle that next year. And the veterinary medicine loan program, just taking care of some of that. Insure Missouri, obviously with our hospital, that was a big item that we watched all year long. And finally, the Tabor bill, which was made it out of the House, made it out of the Senate committee, and then to the Senate full body, moved along. The President on May 15th sent a letter to the leadership kind of outlining several different issues on this particular bill of why this would be a great concern for the university as a whole. This is very similar to what Colorado did a few years ago, and so that's an item there that we'll have to continue to watch. Just in a nutshell, that was a proposed constitutional amendment that would prohibit appropriations growth from exceeding the appropriations growth limit. The growth limit is based on inflation plus the state's population growth, and as most of you know, the population growth in Missouri is minimal, so really you're looking at the inflation rate, and that would be your growth rate in the appropriations. Yes, ma'am.
Steve, I think it's also important to note that in Colorado, which it did pass, they suspended it for 5 years because it had such a horrible effect on education and a lot of other institutions in the state that moved them to 50th. And I think that it didn't take much convincing to have the people put a 5-year moratorium on that bill.
Another component of this bill is that they would establish a reserve fund. And as you know, we have a rainy day fund, but much like that, you would have to pay that back. And so really it's a loan from yourself. And so what you find is you'd be playing catch up, and in tough times, it's going to be very tough to come back and pay that fund back and do some other things. So I think the President made some good points as far as the concern that. Again, that was on May 15th. His letter was sent out. If you don't have a copy, I'd be happy to provide that. The next slide is kind of going into just what are the 2008 elections. We know we're going to have a new governor to deal with next year, and so that will be an opportunity for us. We're going to have a new Speaker of the House, as well as President Pro Tem in the Senate and Majority Leader in the Senate. So essentially your leadership, both in the House and the Senate and in the Governor's Mansion, are all going to be new, and those all provide opportunities for us. There are 4 senators that are term limited and 21 representatives that are term limited this year. As you know, there are half the bodies up in the Senate, and 21 of the, actually probably a third of the Senate, I'm sorry, and 21 of the term-limited House members, but all the House members are up. One of the things that we wanted to do is go back and kind of look at between 2006 and 2008, and for all intents and purposes, if you go back and look at all of the leadership that's taken place in the last 2 years and all the changes, every leadership position will change, and that's governor, both the Senate leaders and the House leaders, and then also your committees that we deal with, whether that's education. The exception would be Gail Kingery on that front, who's the House education member that we deal with. So essentially in the last 2 years we've had a clean slate, or we're going to have a clean slate that we're dealing with, and with that provides those educational opportunities that we have to come back that the President was addressing earlier. And the final slide I have here is just, again, a little bit more of the term limit impacts. House members that came in 2002, that was the very large class of 92 members. Right now, after the next election, there'll be at most 55 members out of that class left. And so if you kind of start to break that down, that means 60%
of the body will be around, but we've already lost that many members just out of that class before they even get done with their term-limited time frame in the House that they have an opportunity to fulfill. House members serve an average of 4 years before entering the leadership post, so about half of their time, but 4 years. The trend will remain in the post of about two and a half years. That's about how long they're averaging in either the Speaker's chair or the Appropriations chair, so on and so forth. So that provides a challenge for us, as you know, is whenever you bring new items before the body, that tells you that with the leadership and others, you better be able to try to accomplish that in about a 2.5-year time frame. There's also turnover in the Senate. Only 2 of the 34 senators that were in the Senate in 2000 will still be in office in 2008. The rest have been term limited out. So we only had 2 left from that. The Senate will lose on average about 12 senators every 2 years. I think one of the things of note here is that just the experience level, and it's just a matter of years that they had the opportunity to serve in the body. If you look at the Appropriations Committee chairs in 2008 as compared to 2001, it was 4 years versus 39. Of course, Senator Russell understood us pretty well whenever he assumed that post. The House was 4 years compared to 13 years at the same kind of time frame. And so, again, I just put those up there as kind of information points. They're knowledge points, and they give us an opportunity to probably analyze what we're doing and how we need to go about doing our business in a much more quick and concise fashion with a much clearer message. And so that kind of completes from that standpoint. I thought maybe I'd just give you a couple of quick updates on the federal side. The Higher Education Reauthorization Act is moving through. That has been kind of stalled due to the illness of Senator Ted Kennedy, who serves as the chair on that, and so we'll have to stay tuned and see how they're going to proceed with the Higher Education Reauthorization Act in Washington, D.C. On the budget and appropriations front, it's an election year, and I think you can look back 2 years ago to see what took place during that time frame, and you may see a replay of that this go-around. The President has said he plans on vetoing anything that is above and out of kilter with his budget that he submitted. Having a body that is in the opposite party, generally they're going to want to do what they have as far as their budget plans, and I think what happened 2 years ago, which was none of the appropriations bills outside of the Defense and Department of Homeland Security bills went through. The rest of them then went into a CR, and they waited until after the election or whenever they came back into January when they had new members. And unfortunately for us 2 years ago, what happened was that they decided to take away all of the earmarks that were in those bills. That cost us a great deal of money. Many of our professors are either on soft money or they do a lot of the research there, and so from Brady Deaton's standpoint and Jack and many of the chancellors had to then scramble around in order to try to figure out a way to keep those folks solvent and on board until we could come back from the federal government side of things. And so our greatest fear there would be that in the end they don't do any of the appropriations bills. They would just do a continuing resolution, keep things at status quo and move forward. And so that's something that we'll be watching and moving on, but I just put that as something that's on the horizon that you may be able to take a look at 2008 and look back at 2006 and see some of the things that you may have to deal with. Finally, the Farm Bill, this is kind of a human interest story. It was passed by the House and the Senate with veto-proof tallies. The bill was sent down to the President, and he promptly vetoed it. However, Section 3, the trade section, was not included in the bill. It was one of those snafus that you had that happens sometimes in legislation. The parchment print of the bill was not in there, and so now they've had to bring it back to Congress, and they're going to have to revote on the entire bill again to be able to send it back down to the President so then he can veto the bill in its entirety. So we do have a few things in there from the University of Missouri standpoint. The Food and Agriculture Policy Research Institute is authorized in that bill. And so there's some things there from a research standpoint that we're obviously interested in. That concludes my report. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Steve, are you planning any seminars for candidates this fall, late summer, and then after the general election to try to bring them up to speed on what's going on at the university?
Yeah, I think, Curator Cairns, what we did 2 years ago is we kind of started the candidate forums, what we call the candidate forums, and we had sent out 4 dates so the candidates, all candidates, whether it was they were incumbents or challengers, could come to one of the 4 campuses, hear a presentation. We could try to begin to increase that knowledge base with them. I think one of the things we want to try to do is after the retreat that we're going to have, our strategic planning retreat, and we have the opportunity to be with all 4 of the chancellors, is to really kind of focus in on that. Do we want to continue to do that? What does it look like? And then also look at after the election and how do we go about making sure that we follow up and do the same kinds of things. It's really kind of looking at a campus immersion plan, if you will, and how do we get all of those legislators in before they come back in on January 1.
Yeah, could you measure any success from having done that?
I think the greatest success from that standpoint, we had over 60 folks who ended up coming to, out of 197, we ended up having 60 who came to one of the 4 campuses that ended up getting elected. And so that was a good number, and I think from just an educational standpoint, I mean, we know that the body as a whole, the amount of alumni that we have serving in the body now has really not changed in the past. The problem is out of that 197 members, many of those you don't know if they've ever stepped a foot on campus. And so just getting them here to understand what our needs are, what we do, how we service the state is a beneficial thing. From a relationship standpoint, and that's what it's all about, it's a good thing for us to do that.
Okay, let me ask you one more question. How many alumni do we have serving? You did put out a statistic on that in the General Assembly.
I think if my memory serves, and please, I don't have it at my fingertips here, but I believe it's right around 60, 63 members that we have.
I want to comment on this vitally important idea of new member education. With the surge that will happen due to term limits, as has been described, new member education is vitally important after the election. As I mentioned at breakfast today, quick case study. I learned a lot of things just by looking at cases. 4 years ago, the city of Kansas City had a not-so-flattering reputation in the General Assembly, and we were attempting to pass the most comprehensive incentive program for downtown revitalization in Missouri history. It's called MODESA. Essentially set up a tax increment at the state level for downtown revitalization. That legislation was introduced and went nowhere. We had an election, we had a big turnover, we had a lot of new freshmen, and the then mayor of Kansas City, Mayor Kay Barnes, had holiday weekend on the plaza. And we invited every member of the freshman class to come up right after the election, bring their spouse, and enjoy the plaza lights at Christmas. On that Saturday morning, from breakfast until lunch, when it adjourned, we had an intensive discussion about what we were trying to do to revitalize downtown Kansas City and how MODESA was essential to that. The central feature of it was that it was the members. It was intimate and small enough that there could be more than just kind of dog and pony PowerPoints, but there was actual discussion. And we focused intensely on MODESA. We did it before the legislative session began, because once that begins, it's too late. It's just too late to get time with them. So they all had a wonderful weekend. We went and watched the Chiefs beat whoever they played that weekend, and we went on then to the legislative session, and the long story short is MODESA passed without a dissenting vote. I think this was the model that we talked about a year ago when we set up the Missouri 100. I think it's vital that we have these freshman members come after the election, and that we provide that same kind of experience for those who will come, that we make sure that it is not all just PowerPoint, dog and pony, but more an interactive discussion about what we're trying to do here, how important accountability is to tell our story. I know that a date has been reserved for the Missouri 100. We might want to rethink that date in light of doing it when we could invite these freshmen to come, because the impression that these freshmen get in that 60 days between the time they're elected and the time they come into the legislature is when a lot of their career-long impressions will be made. And so I think we found that to be vitally important when we did it in Kansas City, and I think the same fruits could be gathered here.
Yeah, and then, of course, they do have the freshman tour, which is after they're elected, but not until they're sworn in. So it's strictly up to the individual elected person whether they want to go on that or not. But I found that really valuable and a step ahead by having toured the state. And it's a 3-week tour, and you do it by bus, and they take you to the major institutions and some of the not so major. But it was a big help in understanding the state and the priorities and what we were going to be dealing with. So,
Steve, what's on this term limit? It seems like is anybody done a study on the average age of a legislator before term limits and after term limits? It seems to me they're a lot younger. Now the term limits have kicked in.
I don't know that anyone has necessarily looked at that. I think what people have been trying to look at has been the average. Just kind of doing what we did is try to compare the length of how long they're serving or how many years as compared to when they take over and doing some of those kind of things. But we can go back and take a look at that, all that information.
Because they may be more sensitive to tuition being younger. If you're younger, you're fresh out of college, or the student curator thing, they may have been a little more sensitive to it because they're younger. I'm curious to see whether or not that has any play on the thing.
okay, are there any more discussion or questions? Do I hear? Well, we don't have anything to vote on, but this concludes the meeting of the External Affairs Committee.
Thank you, Curator Cairns, and now Curator Russell for the Finance and Audit Committee.
Thank you. We've got 4 information items that I will not repeat. I think all members or most of the members of the board were there, and if not, the information was provided in the packet that was sent out, and so we'll move into the 3 action items. The first action item was a selection of private equity partnerships. If you recall back at our last meeting, we deferred any decision and met again yesterday, and the Finance and Audit Committee discussed whether to move forward with the hiring of additional private equity managers, and the committee decided to move forward with an allocation to 2 different managers. And the committee is authorizing the Vice President for Finance, is requesting approval to authorize the Vice President for Finance and Administration to hire Welsh, Carson, Anderson, and Stowe Fund 11 to manage up to $15 million for both the University of Missouri Endowment Fund and the University of Missouri Retirement Fund, and then also Vectus Life Sciences Fund 2, $15 million, or 9% of the total capital raised, whichever is less. The committee discussed, approved, and the committee recommends to the full board approval of these 2 private equity partnerships. So moved.
Second.
Curator Carey?
Yes.
Curator Carnahan?
Yes.
Curator Erdman?
Yes.
Yes.
Curator Haggard?
Yes.
Curator Russell?
Yes.
Curator Walker?
Yes.
Curator Walsworth?
Yes.
Curator Hopfinger?
Yes.
The second action item was the fiscal year 2009 operating budget, and this action authorizes the president of the university to develop 2008-2009 current funds budget based on the assumptions that were presented. That was included in your packet, but may want to specifically note a few of those assumptions. First, it includes the assumption of the 4.2% increase in state appropriation. It also includes the net increase in tuition of 4.1%, the merit salary adjustment pool of 4%, and then also it does include $7.1 million to fund year 1 of the ranked faculty compensation plan that we discussed yesterday. This includes $5.5 million in salaries and $1.6 million in benefits. The Finance and Audit Committee again discussed, and on behalf of the committee, move its approval.
So moved.
Second. Yes.
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 The last item, Madam Chair, is the approval of the resolution to issue and deliver capital project notes. The Finance and Audit Committee moves approval of the resolution to issue and deliver these project notes of the Curators of the University of Missouri in a principal amount estimated to be $100 million for the purpose of funding the cost of capital projects of the university.
So you're making
Motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Yes.
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 Okay, thank you. Our last committee report, I'll turn it over to Curator Walsworth for Physical Facilities and Management Services.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The information item we have yesterday, I think that the entire board was here while we had that. If not, it's in your packet. We have only one action item today that the committee considered yesterday, and I would like to recommend that the full board approve this action item. It is to approve and to enter into a sole source contract with Intuitive Surgical Incorporated of Sunnyvale, California for the purchase of a Da Vinci S surgical system for the University of Missouri Healthcare. This is a robotic assisted surgical system that is used to perform a minimal invasive procedure. It was noted that there was only one company that has this technology. This committee, the Physical Facilities and Management Service Committee, moves that this be approved.
Second. Yes.
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 Madam Chairman, this concludes the business of the Fiscal Facility and Management Service Committee.
Thank you. This takes us to general business and the good and welfare of the board. I have two brief items, and I'll open up to anyone else that might have any. One, I just wanted to comment on what wonderful weather Chancellor Deaton brought up yesterday for us to have the groundbreaking for the Orthopedics Institute. It was certainly a wonderful experience. It was certainly a long time coming, and I'm sure that he and Jim Ross are thrilled and excited about the future. And I guess this time, 2 years from now, thereabout or a little sooner, that we'll be doing the ribbon cutting for the Orthopedics Institute, so that's quite exciting. Another thing that I might add, Governor Blunt created the first ever Poet Laureate seat in the state of Missouri, and as those of you may know, that poetry is quite near and dear to my heart. But even more importantly of Governor Blunt doing that, the first Poet Laureate from the state came right here from this campus, Mr. Walter Burgeon. And so I would just like to recognize that and recognize the significance of the first Poet Laureate of the state of Missouri coming from the University of Missouri. And he's not a professor of poetry or a professor of literature either, I might add.
What is he, an engineering student?
No.
Why would you think
No, he's not.
That's what you are.
I know, that's what Are there any other comments for the good and welfare of the board?
Carrie, I have a note from one of my fellow planning committee members, and I am in agreement. I think we would like to have a planning committee meeting within 2 or 3 weeks after your retreat to get plugged into what happened at the retreat and make sure we're all on the same track and we're not find out 3 months after the fact that we're maybe off. So about 2 or 3 weeks after the retreat, why don't we plan on having a committee meeting of the Resources and Planning Committee, and we'll kind of get an update as to what happened at the retreat. Would that be all right?
Good idea.
Okay.
I move we adjourn.
Second. Yes.
Yes.
Yes? Yes.
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 Yes. Can we be sure to turn the tags into,
Yeah, I'm leaving this,
Doug,
but I'll lose it.
one.